Hello, and welcome back to Zenin Fanfics. Today we're starting an exciting new series. What if Deku had cat-like features? If you enjoy this video, please like and subscribe for more content. The story we're featuring is written by Jace is dead on archive.ourown.org. You can find all the relevant links in the description, so be sure to check out the author's profile and say hello. Now, let's dive into the story. I'm sorry, Midoriya, but your son, he has a villain quirk. The doctor spoke quietly while sighed, eyeing the baby. I'm sorry, I don't quite understand what you mean. She couldn't think of how her 4-month-old baby could have a villain quirk, or how a quirk could be a villain one. We found out that he can control and talk to shadows, almost as if they're people. There might be other side effect to this, I'm sorry. Inko's eyes slowly went into a glare at the doctor. She didn't get how this was a bad thing. It meant that he was special. Thank you, doctor, but when can I take my son home? Izuku was now 4 years old. From what Inko could tell, his body was slowly changing. She had seen him many times talking to shadows or nothing at all. She didn't mind it since it never seemed to harm him. But now she was starting to notice things about him, like the small tail and ears. Izuku, honey, can you come here, please? She asked from the kitchen. What she didn't expect was for Izuku to suddenly jump out of a shadow with his tail bushier and ears twitching. Mommy, look, my ears are so pretty. They even have a green shine to them. He yelled excitedly as he jumped around the room, showing the appealing colors that seemed to dance around them. Oh, honey, that's so appealing. She praised, picking up her son and throwing him into the air. She set him down before turning a little more serious. That's great, sweetie, but you're not telling me something and you're hiding it. I know I don't need to hear anything you don't want me to, but are you being bullied? She asked, looking sadly at her son. The boy's smile slowly went into a frown as he looked at the ground. I didn't think it was a big deal that the teacher said that it was my fault for being distracting, so I thought I just needed to blend in. So I stopped talking to the shadows at school, and I stopped showing my ears. The shadows help me, Mama. They're really nice. He sounded happy when talking about the shadows. Oh, honey, the way they treat you isn't good. I think maybe we should have you SWCH schools. Maybe even a move. It could be an adventure, she said, trying to make it sound exciting for him. He smiled widely and began talking about possible heroes he would meet while they moved. The move was pretty smooth, actually. They had found a house that was decently sized and in a good neighborhood with a few schools nearby. But Izuku was observant, and he saw how much it stressed his mother out to move everything to a different house. So he decided that if something happened that he wouldn't say anything. He was supposed to be starting school again soon, too. He was around 6 now, since the move had taken longer than they expected. And as he grew older, more things began to appear due to his quirk. His hands up to his elbows slowly began to turn black, almost like they were dipped into ink and allowed to drip down. They would slowly turn into white flowers with swirling black clouds. It was only to his biceps now, but it always seemed to be moving and growing, and the fluffy tail that now went with his ears and small fangs. He was going to a public school close enough that he would be able to walk by himself, since his mom had a few long shifts during the week. He was nervous that he would be bullied again at school, especially since he got bullied worse for the markings appearing on his skin. Okay, honey, I hope you have a good day, okay? And make sure to tell a teacher if someone makes fun of you. And if they don't do anything, tell me, got it? Izuku nodded his head and hugged his mom before walking nervously into the room. Most of the kids were all playing together or sitting at their desks talking. So Izuku went to the teacher. He was coming a little late in the quarter anyway. Mama, I am. The woman looked down a little shocked, but smiled. Well, hello there. You must be Midoriya Izuku. He nodded his head. Well, my name is Ms. Akio. We need to introduce you to the class. Would you like to do it or have me do it? She asked, crouching down. Could you do it, please? He asked nervously. His other teachers wouldn't have done this for him. Of course, sweetie. Is there anything you want the class to know about you? Izuku thought about it for a second before shaking his head no. Okay, let's go ahead and get their attention then. Everyone, settle down, please. Everyone in the class took their spots and waited for her to continue. Thank you. Today we have a new student. This is Midoriya Izuku. He stepped forward a little and waved shyly. Please be nice to him. She turned to Izuku. Now how about you sit in between Todoroki and Takami? The two students raised their hands. One was blonde with bright red wings, while the other had white hair and turquoise eyes that looked piercing. Izuku put his stuff down and set up all of his supplies ready for the teacher to start talking. When it was lunchtime, Izuku put most of his stuff away before pulling out the lunch his mom had made him. Hi. He looked up a little surprised to see Takami standing in front of him. Hi. He answered a little confused as to why the other was so excited. I told you, Birdie. You're going to scare him. He looked over to see Todoroki leaning back in his chair with his feet on the desk. What? No, I won't. See, he hasn't run away yet. Takami yelled, waving his hand at Izuku. Doesn't mean you didn't scare him. Look at his ears. They're flat against his head. Izuku hadn't noticed till now, but his ears were back. He put his hands over his ears with a blush. Look what you did too. The other boy looked over, seeing small tears in Izuku's eyes. Wait, that's not what I meant. It's just, your ears go back like a cat. I wasn't making fun of you, promise. Todoroki said, leaning back up and trying to find a way to calm down the other. Geez, too. So nice. Takami said, rolling his eyes. Izuku calmed down a little and moved his hands from his head, letting his ears come back up to their normal position. Wait, can I pet you? Your hair and ears look really soft. Izuku squeaked, a little surprised at the question. I'm sure. Izuku said, still a little confused. Takami reached out and started petting Izuku's head. A noise erupted from his throat, making Izuku cover his mouth and blush. Did you just purr? Todoroki asked, making Izuku blush more and duck his head. Wait, no, Midoriya, it was cute. Takami said, still petting the other's hair. A little after lunch was over, the teacher let them go outside to play. Izuku sat under a tree, talking quietly to one of the shadows that sat under the tree. It seemed nice and told him about the other students that passed it, telling him who and who not to avoid, at least until Takami and Todoroki walked over and sat next to him. Hi, Midoriya. Takami greeted as he sat down next to Izuku. He watched as the shadow moved a little and settled closer to Izuku. Hi. He answered. He didn't get why these two wanted to hang out with him so bad. At his other school, they only bullied him. Why do you always answer with a question? Todoroki asked, out of the blue, looking up at the leaves of the tree. Well, my old school people weren't really nice to me, so Mom and I had to move here. I'm not used to people being nice to me. He looked down at the shadow and idly played with, hoping they wouldn't notice. Wait, you were bullied? Izuku nodded his head, making his ears go back since he didn't like the thought of being bullied again for being weak. How? You're so adorable. Takami yelled, throwing his hands up into the air. Izuku lifted his head, a little shock. He had a few tears streaming down his face. What Birdie means is that you seem too nice and cute to be bullied. Todoroki explained, hitting the other in the arm. Yeah, they both looked to Izuku, who was crying more. Wait, why are you crying? Was it something we said? Takami asked, getting close to the boy but not touching him. No, it's just, no one's ever been so nice to me before. He explained, smiling at them while wiping his tears. Both of the other boys paused and only looked at him before both of them squashed him into a hug. We're keeping him, Takami said with Todoroki nodding, making Izuku laugh. You can't keep me. I need to go back to my mom. He said playfully while pushing out of the hug. I don't know, Midoriya. I've always wanted a cat. Todoroki teased back, pulling the other boy closer. Yeah, my mom talks about getting one all the time. Izuku started giggling, making the others join in before dissolving into a pile of laughter. Hey, Midoriya. Izuku looked over to face Todoroki. Can we call you by your first name? You call us by our first name, too. Izuku thought about it for a second. Sure, Tuya. Both of the other boys brightened up at that before they went back to looking at the front. It was the end of the day, and all of the kids were waiting for their parents in the playground. The three boys were sitting under the tree again, making it their unofficial spot, telling each other about their quirks. Mine's cremation. I have blue flames that I can create, but that's pretty much it. Izuku looked at him wide-eyed in interest. That's so cool, Tuya. Why you could help people so So much with a quirk like that. You could get rid of rubble and take down the enemy quickly by scaring them or making them overheat. Tuya blushed a little at the praise but didn't say anything else. Oh, my quirk's called Fierce Wings. It lets me fly and I can control my feathers really easily like this. He then pulled one of his feathers out, letting it fly around Tuya and Izuku like it was being controlled by wind. That's awesome, Kigo. It's so useful. When they get bigger, you could use them like S-swords and other weapons, he said, grabbing onto the feather and inspecting it while he talked. Thanks, Izuku. But what's your quirk? Kigo asked, just watching the other look at the feather. My quirk lets me travel through shadows and talk to them. That's all I know right now, and it gave me ears, fangs, a tail, and these weird things on my arms. He looked down again, waiting for them to call him a villain or something worse. Can we see? He looked up a little confused at them, the fangs, tail, and markings. You don't have to if you don't want to. Tuya assured him, so he didn't pressure the other. Sure. He opened his mouth a little, letting them see the fangs. Then he let his tail out of his shirt where he hid it. Then he rolled up his sleeves so they weren't covering his hands and arms. His mom let him get longer sleeve stuff, even though she didn't see the issue. Wow, Izuku, these are so pretty, Kigo said, running his hand over the markings, seeing them move a little. Yeah, Izuku, Tuya agreed, both being mesmerized by the flowers and clouds. Thanks, Kei-chan and Tu-chan. Both stopped and looked at him as he blushed a little. What did you call us? Tuya asked. Izuku could feel the other tightening his grip on his arm. Sorry. It's just that. Your names are kind of hard to say, and since we're kind of friends and I dashed, Tuya and Kigo cut him off with another hug, making him panic for a second until he heard them both laugh a little. Sorry, it's just most people don't like us either, Tuya said, finally letting the other boy go. But you're both so nice, and you both treat me like a human, and after that he started trailing off into other things. They heard most of it, but they started laughing a little before petting him, making him stop. It's fine, Izuku. It's more the fact that we're the weird kids is all. The three then started messing around more, waiting for their parents to come. Though Izuku knew that when both of the other two left he would be walking home since his mother had a long shift at the hospital. It wasn't long till both Tuya and Kigo's mom showed up, talking lightly before stopping to see the three boys sitting under the tree with flower crowns on. Tuya, Kigo, who's this? A woman with white hair asked, crouching down in front of them. Mom, this is Izuku. He's new here, and he's our best friend now, Kigo said, talking to the other woman. Hi, he said with a smile, hiding behind both of the other boys. Well, hello, Izuku. I'm Sakura. I'm Kigo's mom. I'm Rei Todoroki. Tuya is one of my kids. He waved to both of the women still hiding behind them. It's okay to be a little nervous, Izuku. How about we meet your mom, so you three can hang out outside of school? Rei suggested. Mom won't be getting back till later. She has a long shift tonight. Mom says her boss is a meanie since he won't let her stay home as often, he said with a small pout. Both of the other mothers looked at each other. How about this? You give your mom these papers, and we can talk to her, okay? Rei said, handing him 2 papers with names and numbers. Okay. Thank you, Miss Rei. It's no problem, Izuku. Now who's picking you up? Mommy says that since it's a nicer neighborhood than our last one, that I can walk home by myself. It's not far, though, he assured, with a still big smile. How about we walk with you so that you three can talk more? The three nodded excitedly, with the 2 women smiling. Once they made it to the Midoriya household, they said their goodbyes to each other. Bye, Kei-chan. Bye, Tu-chan, he yelled before walking into his house and getting ready to do his homework. They were told to write about their day and any interest they had. He sat in the living room on the floor with a black blanket under him and a portable desk with most of the lights off. He found that he liked the dark more than it being super bright. He didn't know why, but he had to guess that it was because the shadows were stronger. Maybe since he finished his homework early, he could mess around with his quirk a little. He looked to the darkest corner and crawled over, looking into it. Hi there, who are you? He asked, placing his hand into the shadow. He watched as it slowly climbed up his arm before settling onto his biggest flower that was placed on his bicep. Good evening. My name is Kuro. Who are you? Hi, Kuro. You new? I thought I had talked to all of the shadows in my house. But my name is Izuku. Why are you here? I heard that there was a kind boy. It appears to be you. Your shadow is light. I offer my company if you'll allow me. Izuku felt excited. Of course, Kuro. I like having friends. Is there anything I need to do? He felt a small rumble before he felt and saw the shadow climb up his arm and settle on the back of his shoulder. He turned, his head a little seeing the silhouette of a cat standing proudly. No, if you allow me to stay, I stay. If not, I simply leave. Izuku nodded his head before grabbing his notebook and writing everything down. What do you do, Kuro? Izuku asked, watching as the cat walked down to his arm. You can summon me when needed. I will appear as a large cat made of shadows. I will assist, and I take no damage. But if you're unconscious, then I will go back to you to save possible energy that may be lost. Izuku's eyes lit up as he listened. So, you're like a knight in shining armor. The cat nodded its head. That's so cool, Kuro. Can I give you a nickname? Since we're friends now. The cat looked to him before seeming to jump off of his skin and appear in front of him. I will allow it. You can name me as you please. The cat bowed its head. The cat was obviously female, since her voice sounded almost like his mother's with the pitch. He thought for a moment before smiling and hugging the tiger around its neck. I'll call you Mayumi. The tiger hugged back with one of its paws before licking him on the top of his head, messing up his bangs a little. Thank you, Izuku. I will protect you when you need me. He smiled and watched as the tiger went into him again before resting over his heart. He didn't get to see when his mother got home as he fell asleep, but he made sure to put the name and numbers in a place that his mom would see. He hoped that he and his new friends would be able to play soon outside of school. Izuku was walking to the school with his mom, who seemed better than before and more well-slept. And then me, Kei-chan, and Tu-chan made flower crowns. I showed them how and made them both ones that matched them. Then they made me one. It was really pretty and I want to save it somehow, can we? Sure, honey. I'll show you how tonight, okay? I have a day off, so why don't we play with your friends too? He cheered as they finally made it to the school. Izuku. The boy looked over to see both of his new friends running over to him and tackling him into a hug, making all three fall. Kei-chan, Tu-chan, I missed you. He hugged them back just as happily. Yeah, we missed our cat. Kigo said, petting Izuku again, making the other boy purr quietly. The three kept messing with each other while the two other mothers walked over to Inko. Inko, I didn't know Izuku was your son. Ray yelled, pulling the girl into a hug. I see you know each other. Sakura teased. Ray, it's been so long. How is Enji? She asked with a smile. I'd rather not talk about it. Both the other adults noticed the small flinch at the name and change of mood. Nice to meet you, Inko. I'm Kigo's mother, Sakura. Nice to meet you too, Sakura. I'm glad Izuku is making friends so easily. She commented, making the other two smile. We're glad that Kigo and Tuya have someone to balance them both out more. They'll be friends for a while, I can tell. Sakura said, smiling as the three chased each other around. I agree. Inko said, would you both like to hang out after school gets out? I have a large backyard where we can sit on the deck too. Both mothers nodded since they had a free schedule. Wait, so shadows can actually be alive like that then? Tuya asked, a little shocked, looking at the tiger sitting on Izuku's shoulder, licking itself. Yeah, Mayumi is really nice too. Izuku said, getting a nod from the animal. Can she talk to us too? Kigo asked, excitedly watching the cat. Maybe. He looked to the tiger, who nodded her head. Hello, other children Izuku likes. Mayumi spoke, looking bored almost. That's so cool. They talked to Mayumi for a minute until they heard someone laughing. So, you losers added the new kid to your little duo? The three looked over, seeing a couple other students standing there smirking at them. Back up, Kasumi. Tuya said, like a warning, with a blue light dancing around his hand. Oh, shut it, Todoroki. You and I both know what happened last time you did something dumb like that. Tuya stood down a little, but Kigo stood up. And what are you going to do, bird brain? Flap some wind at me. The two looked angry, but couldn't do anything. Izuku looked between them before standing up and standing in front of them. Why are you being so mean? What did they ever do to you? He asked, getting defensive of his friends. Oh, and the villain finally comes out to play, huh? I know you. One of my friends went to your old school. You're a villain with that quirk. So why don't you let us heroes stop you? With that, the other kids began running at them with their quirks activated and went straight for Izuku. Izuku! Both of the other boys yelled, but there wasn't a need as shadows grabbed onto the attackers' legs, making them fall to the ground, at which the teacher ran out looking lost. What happened here? She asked, running over to make sure that everyone was okay. That villain attacked us when we were playing. The leader yelled, full of rage. No, he didn't. You were trying to attack us. Tuya yelled, being held back by Kigo, who was trying to calm him down. Midoriya, what happened? She asked, looking to the boy who was crying now, sitting on the ground. They said mean things to Kei-chan and Tu-chan, and then they ran at me, and I got scared, and he broke off into more sobs, making both Tuya and Kigo run over to try and calm him down a little. Kusumi, you and your friends to the principal's office now. The group looked shocked, but didn't argue as they all walked away. She then walked over to the three and looked them over. Are you three okay? I'm sorry I couldn't stop them before. She said, still making sure they were okay. We're okay, Mizakio, I think. She looked at them longer, then nodded her head. I'll walk you three to the office as well. The principal will want to hear about this, and I'll call your parents so you can go home early. The three nodded, running back into the room to grab their things. The three boys waited in the office waiting for their mothers to come get them. Izuku was still crying, and the other two were still trying to calm him down. Izuku, what's wrong? Kigo asked. He was always better with emotions than the others. Am I a villain? He asked, not lifting his eyes from his pitch-black hands. Izuku, you're not a villain, Tuya said, sounding almost outraged that he would think that. But I am. I used my quirk to hurt them, and they called me that, didn't they? Izuku was crying harder now. Kigo looked at his friend in shock, while Tuya got off the chair and sat in front of Izuku. Izuku, look at me. The boy didn't lift his eyes. Come on, kitty, look at me. The boy looked up at him, but barely. You used your quirk to save us and yourself. They're the villains. Tuya then hugged Izuku tightly, with Kigo doing the same. The boy was still crying, but seemed to calm down a little and was breathing more steady. Did you call me kitty? Izuku asked with a little amusement in his voice. Tuya jumped, but didn't pull away. I did. If you don't like it, I won't call you it. No, I kind of like it. The mothers got there shortly after and looked to see their kids asleep in the chairs. They smiled at them before going into the principal's office to have a yelling match. When Izuku woke up, he found himself lying on the couch with two other bodies hugging him tightly. He sat up a little, seeing both Kigo and Tuya holding on to him in their sleep. He was a little confused, since the last thing he remembered was him crying while Kigo and Tuya hugged him. He looked around and saw their moms sitting in the kitchen drinking tea while talking quietly. He looked down at the two again before shaking them both awake. Go back to sleep, kitty, Tuya said, dragging Izuku back down to the couch, making him giggle. Tu-chan, Kei-chan, get up. Tuya groaned before rolling off of the couch, making Kigo wake up with a squawk and Izuku laughing. Zu, why do you have to do that? Kigo said, leaning onto the other's back, still a little tired. Get up, we can play now. Both seemed awake then and ran to where they saw their parents and asked them if they could go outside. The mother smiled and let them play outside while they sat on the porch. Maybe I could drag Fuyumi and Natsuo to come over sometime. It would be fun, Rei said, watching as Tuya got tackled by the other boys. That would be fun. Maybe I can convince Aoi to come too. Make it a bonding thing. The three started planning on when the group could all meet up and talk to each other and have all the kids meet each other. There was a knock at the door, making the boys and moms look up before the boys followed Inko to the door. Hi, my name is Mitsu, Inko. The woman at the door looked shocked beyond belief to see Inko there, and she looked just as surprised but hugged the woman. Mitsuki, it's been so long. The woman hugged her back and started laughing. It really has. Man, I missed you, Inko. Me and Masaru just moved in next door. Inko then pulled the woman and making her see the two other women and the three kids. And who are they? She asked with a smile, already walking over. Oh, you remember Rei, right? Mitsuki nodded her head before running over and hugging the other woman. It's good to see ya, Rei. Mitsuki let her go and turned to the other woman. Hi, my name is Mitsuki. I've known these two for a while now. Mama, me, Kei-chan, and Tu-chan are going to the park. He yelled, waiting for his mom to reply. Okay, honey, be careful and don't get hurt. And remember, you have to watch Katsuki when you get back. He ran out the door with the two other boys close behind. They were all 10 now. The three had been stuck together for a while now, and didn't seem like they wanted to separate anytime soon. They had all been to each other's houses by now, and met each other's families, but it was hard to, especially since how Endeavor was, and how many siblings Tuya had. And they now had a little brother to take care of on top of it all, while Izuku had Katsuki. Izuku now had the markings all over his arms. They seemed to grow with him, and he now had 3 companions. He had Kuro, his original cat, Tokij, the giant dragon, and Okami the wolf. Kuro was still the only girl he had, but he wouldn't trade them for the world. They were all sitting on the swings, not moving much, but enjoying each other's presence. I think I need to get Shudo out of the house, Tuya said out of nowhere. What? Where would you go? Kigo asked with Izuku nodding along. I don't know, I just don't want to growing up there. Endeavor ignores Natsuo, and Fuyumi trains me to the bone. What happens when Shudo gets his quirk? The two looked at each other before answering. Tuchan, stay with me, Izuku said with a determined look. What? Come on, Tuya. It's a good idea. Mama Mito is super scary and her friend a lawyer. Kigo answered, calming down a little. But if he comes for us, you're both in trouble. That made the two look at each other again. He could hurt you guys, and I can't have that. Tuya, I'm willing to do anything for you and your family. They're like my family too, and if Endeavor's the bad guy, we gotta help. Izuku explained. I can't live with that. Tuya yelled, standing up. The two followed and pulled him into a hug. We can, please, just trust us, okay? Kigo assured as he hugged the other. Do you guys want to stay the night at my house this weekend? Izuku asked as he laid on Tuya's stomach with Kigo doing the same. Yeah, Kigo yelled, shooting up into an upright position. I don't know, guys. What if he does something while I'm gone? Tuya asked. Bring them with. Endeavor has a mission that'll take them a week. Come on, we can launch the plan. Tuya pulled out his phone, texting his mom about the plan, finally going into action. Once school was over, the three walked to the house and opened the door, walking in casually. Mom, we're home, Tuya yelled, not bothering to take off his shoes before coming in the rest of the way. Izuku, the boy in question, looked up to see Fuyumi and Shudo running at him before tackling into a hug. Hi, how are you two? He asked, standing up a little. We're good. Tuya and Mom have been helping me after training, Shudo said, sounding excited, with Fuyumi nodding with a sad smile. Yeah, and my teacher said that I might be a good teacher. Izuku smiled. That's amazing, you two. Hey off, brats, he's my friend, Tuya yelled before pulling Kigo and Izuku to him. Hey, he's our friend too, Fuyumi shouted with a smirk. Note mine, we're going to his house, so pack anything you want, okay? He yelled, dragging the siblings up to their rooms. Good evening, Miss Ray. My name is Detective Sakachi. I was called here to talk about your husband. The detective greeted before the group even entered the house. And I would love to talk to you, but first I want to make sure my children will be safe. Izuku pulled out his key and unlocked the door, letting the others in. Of course, ma'am. I would also like you to meet Eraserhead. He's an underground hero, a man wearing all black with a slouch bowed to them. Right. My mom isn't here right now, 'cause she has work. Izuku stepped in, letting everyone in. Let's go to the living room, then. Izuku, can you take the others to your room? Ray asked, setting Shudo down. Of course, I'll be back down in a minute. Izuku led the others upstairs with Kigo, making sure the wing team was all set before going back downstairs with Tuya. Can I get you anything? He asked as we went to the kitchen with Tuya sitting down next to his mom. Tea for me, honey. I'll have a coffee, please. Izuku turned to look to the underground hero, who hadn't said anything. Coffee. Izuku smiled and went to the kitchen preparing the drinks. Right, let's get to this. This isn't going to be easy, but can you tell me about what goes on at home? The detective asked, pulling out a notebook. Well, if he isn't home, then everything seems peaceful. My kids will play together. Izuku and Kigo will come around and keep them company. They all play together. Ray had a soft smile on her face before it was whipped away, but when he is there, the kids are scared. Natsuo and Fuyumi are made to leave and be by themselves. Ta is forced to train constantly, even if he begins to burn himself. And Shudo, he's close to possibly getting a quirk. And if it's just as powerful or even more, I don't want them in that house. I don't want them to be like that. Ray had a determined look in her eyes as she spoke. Of course, we understand that. Now, Tuya, can you tell us what training is like? Tuya looked at the detective before looking at Izuku. Izuku, can you go for a minute? Izuku looked at the other and smiled. Sure thing. Gotta make sure they haven't started a riot yet. He stood up and patted Tuya on the head before leaving. It isn't training. Tuya pulled his jacket off, showing burns and red skin over his arms and shoulders. It's him beating the SHD out of me until I use my quirk so much it leaves red marks. Do you know why he does that? Tuya scoffed and rolled his eyes. He wants me to beat All Might. That's all he cares about, beating All Might. He wants to beat him so much. Tuya could feel tears in his eyes, but just glared. Tuya, honey, go check on the others, okay? He looked up and nodded his head before leaving. Do either of you know what quirk marriage is? What are you losers doing? Tuya asked as he looked at the group. Kigo was in the air with Natsuo, holding onto one of his arms. Fuyumi was looking over some of Izuku's analysis, and Shudo was playing with one of Izuku's shadows as the other watched. Tuya, you have to look at this. Izuku's analysis is amazing. He figured out a way to even take down All Might with one move. Fuyumi cheered as she showed him the pages. I know, I've seen his notebooks. They're all pretty impressive. Izuku blushed and pushed Tuya. Whatever, but when I came up here I did some research on the detective and underground hero. Both pretty new to the jobs, but successful in all their cases. The underground hero was hard to find though, but I think I figured out both their quirks, even though it's not actually on record. Izuku kept rambling as he grabbed a notebook and began writing it down while mumbling. Okay then. Well, what are you two doing? He asked, pointing to Natsuo and Kigo. He wanted to fly, so I'm flying for him. Kigo answered before dropping Natsuo onto the bed, making Fuyumi jump slightly. Okay then. Well, they're talking to Mom right now, so we got a minute. Ray, I am so sorry that all of this has happened to you, but I'm glad we'll be able to help. If you want, you can call down the others now. I'm sure they have questions. Ray smiled with her eyes, drifting to a corner before Izuku jumped out with a smile. I have many questions. Both of them jumped while Ray chuckled. First, detective, how does your quirk work exactly? Does it give a different color if the person is lying or telling the truth? Do you see a word? Do you hear a word? Or is it just kind of like an intuition thing? Can someone actually lie to you and your quirk doesn't catch it? Can I see if I can beat it? Or dash? Izuku kept asking questions while the two just looked at him. Does he do this a lot? Eraserhead asked, looking a little shocked. Eraser jumped when Izuku pointed at him. Your quirk doesn't work on mutant types, right? But what counts as a mutant type? Could you cancel out my quirk, even though it shows as a mutant? Could you turn off Kichin's quirk, since it's also similar to mutants? Or dash? Wait, how do you know what our quirks are? Izuku stopped and looked at them. There's footage of you going against someone. It's short, but I could tell what exactly happened and was able to map it out and could see your technique. It's actually interesting to see you fight with your capture weapon. Most would think it's a secondary quirk, but you can see the small movements in your hands to see it move. Eraserhead sighed as he listened to the kid. Okay, first off, where did you see the video? Oh, it's a website for specifically underground heroes. Only about 10 people have seen it. Well, that's nice, but me and Eraserhead need to leave. We'll get back to you soon. Hi, honey, I'm Biasho. Hello, Ray. When did you get here? Inko asked as she set down some groceries bags in the kitchen. Hi, Inko. I got here a little after the boys got out of school. We decided to put the plan into action. Inko stopped and tackled Ray into a hug. Oh my gosh, that's amazing. You and the others can stay as long as you need. The next day was pretty relaxing. Izuku, Kigo, and Tuya had training that day, so the younger siblings, along with Katsuki, had decided to come with and watch them. It was 1v1v1 since they all needed to work on hand-to-hand, though Izuku was beating them both right now. Come on, Tuya, kick his butt. Natsuo yelled as he flipped Izuku over his shoulder. Yeah, Deku, get him. Katsuki yelled as Izuku managed to pin both Kigo and Tuya to the ground. Izuku wins again. Fuyumi called as she added another tally to Izuku's name. Come on, kitty. Why can't we beat you? Tuya groaned as he stood up with the help of Izuku. Well, Tuchan, Maybe if you and Kei-chan stop going after each other first, it might help. Izuku teased as he helped Kigo up. Not my fault Birdie can't hold against me for SHD. Tuya covered his mouth as soon as he said it. Fuyumi. Tuya said a bad word. Shudo shouted with Natsuo backing him up, while Katsuki laughed. Tuya. Time to run. The group watched as Fuyumi chased her brother before tackling him. Guys, help me. Tuya shouted as his sister pinned him. No, not messing with that. They both called, making the other teens sigh in frustration. Once the three decided to take a break, they all had lunch. Man, Izuku, you're a good cook, Natsuo complimented. Thanks, but Katsuki helped me a lot. He really enjoyed it. Katsuki glared and tackled the teen while letting off small explosions. You weren't supposed to tell them, Deku. Katsuki shouted, making the others laugh. Come on. You know you wanted them to know. He teased, picking up the other boy easily. It calmed down after a moment, and they all went back to eating with a few jokes thrown around. The group walked back to the house and dropped off the kids before Izuku, Kigo, and Tuya decided to go out. We'll be back later. Izuku called as they walked out the door. Where should we go? Tuya asked as they walked down the street. Let's go somewhere downtown. I want to get more food. Kigo begged, draping himself onto Izuku like he was crying. Jesus, pretty bird, all you do is eat. Tuya complained, even though he was hungry himself. Come on, Tuchan. It'll be fun. We can go get some food and maybe shopping. Both smiled at their friend's excitement. They walked down the street, passing by a few shops that they stopped in and bought a few things. But no, Shudo ended up falling and dash. Tuya was cut off as a girl ran into Izuku, knocking him over a little. Whoa! He caught the girl, who looked scared. Are you okay? She nodded her head, but jumped when someone shouted. Where'd she go? They looked and saw 3 other kids looking around the area. Izuku caught on quickly and picked the girl up with a smile. Hi, my name's Midoriya. How about we go in here? Izuku dragged the other 2 into the store with him. The 3 slipped into the store and began looking around like nothing happened. It confused the girl that Izuku was still holding. You okay? Izuku asked, looking at her, which seemed to shock her even more. Why are you helping me? She asked in a shaky voice. He smiled at her again. Because, now, what do you like? He asked her, turning so she could see the full store. I really like cute stuff. He nodded his head and began walking towards the girls' section. Izuku, did they leave? The appearance of the other teens made her jump a little, but Izuku ruffled her hair. No, not yet. Want to help me find her something, though? Both looked from the girl to him and nodded. You like girly stuff, right? Tuya asked, sounding out of his element. Yeah, I really like red and pink. Kigo seemed to glow at that. Does that mean you like my wings? He asked, ruffling his wings a little. They're really pretty. Tuya seemed to soften, while Kigo looked like he just saw a kitten. Oh, can we keep her? She's so cute. Izuku was about to speak up when she tugged on his shirt a little. Can you? Mama and Dad aren't around anymore. All 3 froze at that. Of course. Now, let's look around. He turned to Tuya. Can you call Mom? She'll want to know. Tuya nodded his head, while Kigo distracted the girl with a hoodie they found. What's your name, kitten? Izuku asked. He had a habit of calling kids younger than him kitten. It's Toga Himiko, but Himiko's cuter. She sent a blinding smile, but soon covered it with her hands. It's okay, Himiko, see. Izuku showed her his own fangs that he had besides. Yours are cute. He ruffled her hair again, making her giggle. They looked around the store with Tuya joining them and pointing out things. What about this? Tuya asked, pointing to a baby blue sweatshirt with the words "My Little Hero" on it. How are you so bad at this? You have a sister. Kigo yelled, looking at Tuya confused. So, she wasn't into this stuff. The 2 kept messing around and didn't notice as Himiko picked up a pair of crystal cat ears on a headband. Can I get this? She asked Izuku. He smiled and crouched down. How about these ones? He asked, grabbing a pair of pink ones that were higher up. Yes. She put them on and smiled and pointed his ears. Now we match. He nearly died then and there. We do. He picked her up again and chuckled at the 2. Okay, come on, we gotta head home. The 2 stopped yelling and settled on pushing each other every now and again. Once they paid for the headband and a few hair ties, they walked out of the store a little shocked to see the kids from before. Hey you! They stopped in front of Izuku, as Himiko cowered into his shoulder. The two behind him glared at the kids. They seemed a little scared but didn't stop. Why are you with that Vil Dash? Izuku glared and showed his fangs as a dark aura surrounded him. You want to finish that sentence? He had venom almost dripping from his mouth at this point as he spoke. The three looked scared then, ran, leaving them alone. You okay, kitten? Izuku asked, getting her attention. Are they gone? This time Tuya spoke up. Yep, we scared them away. If they ever bother you again, tell us. Himiko smiled and hugged Tuya, shocking him a little. Thank you. Well, hello there. You must be Himiko, right? Inko asked as the three boys entered the house. Oh, aren't you just the cutest? Ray said as she got closer to the girl who looked at her with wide eyes. Wow, you're both really pretty. Both the women smiled as Izuku handed her to Ray. Well, thank you, honey. Now why don't we all dash? Izuku tuned them out as he turned to the other two with a smile. Why don't we have the others meet Himiko? After that, it all went into chaos. Fuyumi was glad to have another girl around. Natsuo immediately made friends with her to cause chaos, while Shudo seemed a little more nervous about the girl. They all still seemed to play, though. It distracted them enough that Inko was able to call the detective and report Himiko, so they could adopt her. Everything had been going smoothly for the families. The charges against Endeavor were dropped on the account that Ray would have full custody and that he would receive a mark on his license. It was less of a charge than the family wanted, but it meant they were away from him and now with the Midoriyas. The adoption process with Himiko had been a little difficult, but she was now officially in Midoriya. So what high school should we go to? Kigo asked as he laid on his stomach. Well, we all want to be heroes, right? Tuya asked from next to Kigo on the ground. Yeah. Izuku called from his position on the tree branch. Both looked at him a little confused. Why are you laying in the tree like that? Tuya asked. It's comfortable. Leave me alone. He grunted, throwing twigs at them. What did I do? Kigo yelled since he was mostly hit with the twigs. You didn't help me. Izuku defended as Kigo flew up to him before he was pushed out of the tree. He smirked before falling into a shadow and appearing back in the tree. Nice try, Kei-chan. Izuku chuckled as Kigo glared at him. You kind of remind me of the Cheshire Cat, Kitty. Tuya pointed out as the two messed around. You remind me of the caterpillar then. Izuku teased, now hanging upside down from the branch. No, Kitty, I meant in a good way. It could be like your hero name. Tuya explained while rolling his eyes. Really? Cheshire Cat? Kigo asked as he landed. No, just Cheshire. Sounds cool, right? Tuya asked. Yeah, it kind of does. I'll use it. You three want to go to UA? Ray asked as she did Himiko's hair. Yep, some of the best heroes are from there. Izuku explained. I think it's a good idea, but it's going to be hard. Inko warned, though the three seemed even more excited. We know, but we want to be the best, right? Tuya defended. Okay, as long as you're all going to work hard and stay safe. That's how the three found themselves here, sitting in the auditorium, getting ready to take the written exam and the practical exam. They were all sitting next to each other, but were going to be placed in different rooms. Good luck, Kitty. Kick some butt, Zuku. The two called as they left the other, so they could begin. Good luck, Kei-chan. Tu-chan. He waved before entering his own room. He sat down at his designated spot and waited for the call to tell them to open the booklet. Once time began, he looked over all the questions and was getting close to finishing when he noticed an extra part to the test titled Analyzing Situations and Heroes. He would be lying if he said he wasn't a little bit excited about that. He opened the extra part and began writing right away. Once the written part was over, the three were able to meet back up and sit next to each other as a pro appeared and began explaining the next part of the exam. Holy CRP. That's Snipe. He's an up-and-coming hero. Kigo and Tuya smiled as they heard Izuku begin to nerd out quietly. Everyone listened, though, as Snipe explained the point system. Now, everyone change into your other pair of clothes and head to your cities. The three had been separated, but they didn't mind since they all knew they had this in the bag. They all stood at the gates in their separate areas, ready to go. Go! Izuku took off past everyone, not waiting for anyone else to go. When he entered the area, a few robots locked onto him. Quickly, he smirked as he pulled shadows and had them turn into claws on his hands. He jumped over the robot before slicing into the backs of them and making them fall apart. He continued on, but got held up every now and again by saving some of the other participants from falling Ruble or other robots. 5 minutes left. He said out loud to himself as he dodged another hit from a robot before slicing it. He panted, catching his breath, hearing his 3 companions silently talking to him. Izuku, there seems to be something approaching quickly. Mayumi warned before Izuku even saw it. There was another loud rumble before a giant shadow appeared covering everyone from the sun. Mayumi, Okami, make sure everyone is away from the robot and near the entrance. The tiger and wolf jumped off of Izuku's skin and began running toward the other students, making sure they were far away. Tokij, survey the area and make sure that no one is trapped somewhere. Hiro, follow and help. The dragon and bear left, leaving Izuku to face the giant robot. He felt himself let go and fall into the shadow before appearing above the robot and landing on its head. Using another shadow, he made a long staff and used it to pry open the hatch before jumping into the robot. Everyone is safe and away, Izuku. We await your command. He smirked. Come back to me. The 4 shadows appeared on his skin again. He looked around the robot before spotting a collection of wires timed to cause chaos. He destroyed the wires before falling into another shadow and appearing near another examine as the robot fell. Where did those animals come from? One of the teachers shouted as the black animals began running around, moving students out of the way. From him, someone pointed to the kid still facing the robot before he seemed to disappear. Who is that? Nedzu smiled as he pulled out a document. Midoriya Izuku. Shadow manipulation, it seems. There was another crash as another robot came crashing down with a student flying away from it with a huge smile. Takami Kigo, fierce wings, another crash with blue flames surrounding the robot. Todoroki Tuya. Those 3 are going to be fun. The 3 walked home with varying moods. Kigo was jumping around excitedly telling the others about what happened to his area. Tuya was just smiling and nodding, and Izuku looked like he was about to pass out. And then I flew up, and, Izuku, you okay? Kigo asked, noticing his friend's ears were back, laying against his head. HM? Yes, sorry, just really tired. To many people, overuse of my quirk, then recovery girl had to heal a few cuts I ended up getting. He explained, though it was a little slurred. The 2 looked to each other before Tuya picked him up and carried him on his back. Here, I'll carry you then. After all, Pretty Bird got to carry you last time. Tuya threw a playful glare at the other, while Kigo had a cocky smirk. Izuku wasn't awake enough to answer, as he felt even more tired with a warm feeling coming from Tuya. When he woke up again, he was a little surprised to see he was on the couch with Kigo and Tuya wrapped around him, Himiko and Shudo both sleeping on his chest, and Natsuo and Fuyumi next to their older brother. He slowly sat up, making sure he hadn't disturbed them when he did, and went into the kitchen to grab some water. He knew that Ray and his mom wouldn't be there since they were both likely at work, since Ray had just gotten a job at a small cafe. He saw that it was almost dinner time and heard a knock at the door. He walked over and saw some of the others begin to stir awake. Izuku, how are you, kid? Feels like forever since I've seen you. Mitsuki dragged him into a bone-crushing hug. Honey, let him go, he can't breath. Masaru pointed out as the woman finally let him go, but he was soon tackled again by Katsuki. Deku, did you win? He smiled at the other boy as he let them all in. I don't know yet, Kakin, but I'm sure I did great. Good. If I have to follow after you, then you have to be the best. Izuku chuckled as he saw the others getting up. Morning to you all, too. He joked as the older ones just groaned at him, while Shudo and Himiko looked happy to see the blonde in his arms. Katsuki both cheered before Izuku put him down so they could tackle him into a hug. Get off me, icy hot, you 2 vampy. He yelled at them but hugged them both back either way. Anyway, why are you 3 here? Izuku asked, going into the kitchen. Well, Inko and Ray won't be back for a while, so they wanted us to make sure you all were okay. Masaru explained. Okay, well, I was going to get started on dinner. I think we might just order takeout or something. Izuku thought, looking at the group, all still sluggish or messing around. Sounds like a good idea. How about pizza? Mitsuki offered, pulling out her phone. Yes. Most of the group called back, sounding excited about the food. Hey, Fuyumi. Izuku called, seeing the girl leave her school. She waved back and ran up to him. Hey, Izuku. How's it going? Fuyumi asked. Terrible. Your brother is insufferable, and Kei-chan isn't any better. She nodded in understanding. They keep checking the box and talking about what we're going to do when we get in, but Fuyumi recognized that face. You don't think you're going to get in? Izuku nodded his head. And they both keep talking about how I'm amazing, and it's really nice to hear that from them, especially. They're both so amazing and powerful. And I'm just... Your Midoriya, Izuku. Fuyumi grabbed onto his shoulder and turned him. You're the person that's helped my family, that saved a random little girl because she was scared. You're Midoriya, Izuku. You're amazing and just as powerful as them. She hugged him, and he happily accepted it. Thanks, Fuyumi. They let go and began to laugh for no reason. It was really refreshing for him. Now what about your boy or girl troubles? That immediately made her blush, making him laugh. The three were still waiting for their letters from UA to come, and the anxiety was killing them. What if we didn't get in? What if they're trying to think of telling us a nice way? What Tuya and Izuku watched as Kigo paced around the room, trying to think of what might have happened. He totally picked up the mumbling from you, kitty, Tuya said, pointing a finger at Izuku. The other smirked and rolled his eyes before standing up and stopping Kigo's pacing. Calm down, Kei-chan. It'll be okay, got it? If we didn't get in, then we go somewhere else. When we get the letters, though, we open them together. Kigo seemed to calm down and hug the other. Okay, we got this. He let Izuku go with a wide smile. They're here, Tuya shouted, dashing back into the house. What? Let me see. Kigo literally flew out of his sitting position and grabbed his letter from Tuya. Izuku was a little more calm as he stood up and was handed his. Should we open them now? Kigo asked. He was excited, but he was also not at his own house still. You should probably open it with your parents. They'll want to know first. Izuku said, nudging Kigo. You're right. I'll be back later. Bye, guys. He zipped out of the house and went to his own. Tuya and Izuku stood there. For a minute before Tuya draped his arm over Izuku. You come here often? Izuku began laughing as Tuya soon joined. Why do you always do that? Izuku asked through laughs. I don't know. It usually makes situations less awkward. Tuya tried to explain as he laughed. Okay. We should probably get the others. Tuya nodded. Izuku went to get their moms and Himiko, while Tuya went to get his siblings. Once everyone was in the living room, the two looked at their letters. Blah, blah, blah. We are pleased to say you'll be in Class 1A of the Hero course. Tuya cheered as he finished reading it. The rest of the family began clapping and cheering while Izuku read through his own. Tears began to fall down his face, making them all panic. Izuku? Is it bad? Inko asked, touching his shoulder. I made it. Are you almost ready? Inko asked as the two boys got dressed for their first day. Yeah. Izuku walked into the living room with his uniform on, though they could tell that he was hiding his tail in his uniform. Tuya walked out looking similar, though he didn't have a tie and his top buttons weren't done. Tu-chan. Izuku glared at him. What? I didn't want the tie. Izuku rolled his eyes before turning back to his family. You both look great. But remember, after school you need to pick up Himiko, Shudo, and Katsuki, okay? Inko reminded the two just as the door burst open. Come on, slow pokes. Time to go, Kigo called as he dashed into the living room. Bye, boys. Have a good day. Both mothers called. Bye, moms. The three stood outside the door, though they could already hear people all talking in the classroom. Tuya was the first to open the door, but it didn't seem to deter any conversations as the three walked in and walked to their seats in the back. They felt like they were back in elementary again since Tuya and Kigo were on either side of Izuku. Wonder what everyone here's like, Tuya said, his eyes scanning the room of everyone. They likely all have combat-based quirks since the exam is tailored to people with those quirks. Izuku pointed out. I'm sure it's fine. Not long after the door opened, getting the three and two other girls' attention. The five watched as a large mouse walked into the room with a smile. He climbed up onto the podium and stood there for a moment. The five were still silent, but the class kept talking. Hello. That got the others' attention as they all turned to him. I am Nedzu. I will be your homeroom teacher this year. Izuku was silently geeking out. Of course he knew who the mammal was. He was an incredible hero when it came to strategy and planning. Now, if you all will follow me, we have an orientation to attend. Throughout the orientation, Izuku could hear some of his classmates talking about their teacher and glared at them each time they did. He noticed a girl with a bunny quirk doing the same and sending him a smirk. Once it was over, though, they were sent back to class to get to know each other. The three boys realized, though, that they weren't fans of most of the class. Hi there. The girl with the bunny quirk and another girl walked over and smiled at the three. My name's Rumi Usujiyama. My name is Ryuko Tatsuma. Pleasure to meet you. Name's Todoroki Tuya. Izuku Midoriya. Kigo Takami. The five seemed to connect right away and began talking about what their quirks were. Wait, we're animal buddies, Kigo declared, pointing at Rumi and Izuku. Izuku playfully rolled his eyes while Rumi grabbed them both. Hell yeah. They all laughed for a moment, until Izuku and Rumi heard someone talking. Wonder if the freaks over there are just like the teacher. Both glared, but Rumi spoke first. What was that? She asked with a slight growl. The other three looked confused at their friends since they didn't hear it. Nothing. One of the people answered quickly. Izuku spoke up this time. If you're going to insult Nedzu-sensei, or us, own up to it. Izuku was standing next to Rumi with a glare and his ears back. Fine, we called you freaks, happy. Rumi glared and bared her teeth. Tuya and Ryuko stepped forward, though Tuya had his hand on fire, while Ryuko's nails became sharper. Want to repeat that, but some of the students back up at the sight of the fire and claws, but a good chunk didn't move. Ah, you think you can beat us with a light show? Besides, if you did even try to attack us, no one would believe we did it first. They all got defensive again, ready to start the fight if they needed. Now, everyone turned to see Nedzu watching the situation. I believe this is unnecessary at the moment. The class looks shocked. Will you all please follow me to the office now? The group that first insulted them had been pulled in first, leaving the five to all sit in the hall at the moment. Do you think they'll expel us? Izuku was panicking a little with Kigo soon joining. Now Midoriya, I'm sure this will all be sorted out. They have no reason to punish us. Ryuko explained with a small smile and a hand on his shoulder. Ryuko's right. We didn't do anything. Rumi defended, standing now. The ladies are right. Besides, our moms would raise hell if they did that to any of us. Tuya chuckled, seeming to calm down the others. Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Izuku spoke as he finally stopped pacing. I assume you three knew each other before you, eh? Ryuko asked. Yep. We've known each other since we were little. Kigo explained with a blinding smile. Same here. Me and Ryuko have been best friends for a while. Rumi explained, slinging her arm over the other girl. Will you five please enter now? Nedzu asked as the other group left, all glaring at the five. They all stood up and walked into the office before sitting down. Now, I am aware what happened. I saw and heard everything, and I would like to thank you all for defending me and your friends. Rumi and Tuya smirked with an evil grin. The other three simply smiled. Of course, Nedzu-sensei. No one deserves that, SHD. Rumi declared with a fist in the air. Of course, now you five go ahead and head home. Class will be over soon anyways. The five left the room before all talking to each other. We have to exchange phone numbers. Kigo declared, pulling out his phone. It would be fun. Soon they all exchanged phone numbers before splitting off. It had only been a week in, and Izuku could already tell who his friends were going to be through the years. The five of them stuck like glue. They all ate together, trained together, and would randomly text each other at odd hours for advice, like how Izuku was texting Rumi and Ryoka now. Angerbun. All I'm saying is that they both give you nicknames, and you all have nicknames for each other, Cat Thief. But we've all grown up together. Isn't that normal? Dragon Princess. In certain moments maybe, but me and Rumi see how they both look at you. How you all look at each other, honestly, Angerbun. Yeah, I thought you and Bird BOI were going to start drooling when Fire BOI used his quirk and then kicked that other kid's but cat thief. Not gonna lie, not my proudest moment, but did you see him? Angerbun. We all saw him was kinda hard not to since he was the only thing on screen, Angerbun. We also saw you two losing it and looking like love-struck idiot's cat thief. Mom, she's bullying me, Dragon Princess. Why am I mom again? Cat thief. You equals function. The rest of us equals disasters, Angerbun. The fact you typed that out proves a point, cat thief. Exactly. The group was at Izuku's place since it was the biggest and we're all studying for the next few tests, or at least trying to study. Himiko no. Izuku shouted, standing up again, and picking up the girl who was laughing while covered in red paint. Next thing they know, Shudo ran out with the left side of his face covered in red paint, making it look like a scare. Okay, brat. Tuya stood up this time and picked up his little brother. Hey, Fuyumi. Natsuo, can you watch the brats so we can study? Tuya yelled down the stairs where he knew at least one of them would be. Yes, sure. Fuyumi ran upstairs and took the two from the boys. Thanks, sis. Thanks, Fuyumi. Izuku looked to Rumi and Ryoku, who were staring at Fuyumi. I'm sorry, but are you two staring at Fuyumi? Izuku asked with a slight teasing tone and a laugh. He knew Fuyumi couldn't hear them now. Are you IF my sister? Tuya yelled in outrage, making Izuku and Kigo fall over laughing. No, we're not IF anyone. Rumi shouted back, ready to tackle the boy. Oh, you want to go, bunny? Bring it, Crispy Beach. The two began fighting on the ground while the other three just watched. She's correct. We weren't looking at her like that. She just seems very sweet, caring, kind, and appealing. Izuku and Kigo awed, while the two still tousled on the ground. She's younger than you both. By a year. Izuku rolled his eyes and stood up with Kigo and Ryuko following. Okay, you two. Kigo and Izuku pulled Tuya up while Ryuko grabbed Rumi. Can't you two go 2 minutes without fighting? Kigo asked in a joking manner. Tuya got an idea and smiled at both of them. Anything for you two. The two blushed and dropped him in their shock, making him yelp as he hit the ground. Ha beach. How does the ground taste? Ryuko dropped Rumi too, but it was more to prove a point out. Ryuko, what the hell? The girl smiled before actually helping up the other girl. You're both children. Tuya got up on his own and saw that Izuku and Kigo were both frozen still. They both snapped out of it, and Izuku pushed Tuya while Kigo punched him in the shoulder. Ow! Stop hurting me! Tuya yelled like a child that seemed to break the air again as they all laughed before sitting back down and getting back to studying. They were going to begin their actual hero training finally. They had to wait for everyone's costumes to be done first before they could go. None of them knew what they were going to be doing exactly, but the 5 were excited. Good afternoon. One of the teachers walked out and began explaining what they were going to do. First, change into your costumes, then meet at ground beta. The teacher then left, letting the class grab their cases and change. Izuku opened his case and was ecstatic. They had gotten what he wanted exactly right. He had a black flat bill cap made, so his ears go through it. It also had a small mic and comm set he could use to communicate with others, a dark metal mask that had the functions of a gas mask and an oxygen filter. The top, though, was a little different since it looked similar to a black corset, but it used belts rather than strings. It also had parts that rested over his shoulders and connected to the front, a black leather jacket, black fingerless gloves that had grips on them, black form, fitting pants that were padded, black combat boots, and finally a utility belt that held emergency supplies, a knife, and a retractable staff. Putting the full outfit on and finally letting his tail out, he looked in the mirror and smiled, letting the mask hang on his neck. He walked out with the rest of the group and freaked out a little at his friend group's outfits. Kigo's looked similar to a pilot's outfit with the addition of a pair of visors. Just his normal costume, really. I'm not creative enough for all that. While Tuya's was a black padded shirt with blue lines going across it that acted as coolers for his skin, black padded pants, and a long black coat that had half sleeves, similar to his villain jacket. Rumi wore a white leotard with her boots and gloves, and Ryoko wore a deep red dress and heels that looked like she was ready to go to a ball, both just their hero costumes. You guys look amazing. He cheered, getting their attention. Both Kigo and Tuya were rendered speechless while Rumi laughed at them. You look amazing too, Midoriya. Ryoka filled in while Izuku blushed a little. Thanks. Though they changed the design a little when it came to the shirt. Ryoka nodded in understanding. I'm thanking whoever did that. Kigo said, not even trying to hide his starring. Oh, same. Tuya added, making Rumi laugh even harder before almost falling trying to breathe. Today you'll all be playing a sort of game of capture the flag that got most of their attention. A group of you will play the villains, another group will be the hostages, and the final will be the heroes. Everyone cheered a little excited. Once everyone was grouped together, it ended up with Rumi and Izuku being on the hero team, Kigo on the villain team, and Ryoku and Tuya as some of the hostages. Each group had 6 except the hero team, who only had 5. The villain team all had to go into the city and decide where they wanted to set up shop and hold the hostages while the hero team planned. The hero team didn't seem to get along, though. The 3 that were with Rumi and Izuku wouldn't listen to what either team thought. That's it. Rumi had gotten fed up, since they weren't even trying to include them in the plan. The hell is your problem? Izuku just glared from behind her. You guys got 3 people expelled on the first day because they didn't agree with you. We'd like to avoid that, thanks. The other girl explained while glaring at Rumi. Oh, you're gonna dash. Izuku grabbed onto Rumi's arm and stopped her. She glared at him for a moment before seeing the smirk on his lips. They're right, let's go. Rumi went with him, even though she wanted to beat the other girl into the ground. Okay, Midoriya, what's the big idea? Izuku smirked and pulled out an extra common mic and handed it to her. He put his own on and covered the mic with the mask. If they think they can beat the villain team and save hostages by themselves, let them. Once they're caught, we'll deal with it. So let's start planning. Oh no, villains. We're so scared. Tuya teased, getting a laugh out of some of the others. Laugh it up, Tuya, but the heroes aren't going to save you now. He declared, making a few of them laugh again. Okay, Takami, right? We got to think of how to keep the heroes back. One of them stated as they all stood in a circle. Well, we chose this really close place, so they might not find us right away. They all nodded along until Kigo added. The only problem is that Midoriya can transport the hostages out of here. All he needs is some form of a shadow and to be touching them. The group tensed a little at that. That will pose a problem. Let's see if we can find any lights to try and block any shadows. You 3 watch them. They were told in the beginning that there would be an announcement if anyone was out. So when Rumi and Izuku heard 5 names get called, they figured 2 were villains while the rest of the hero team had been taken out. Ready? Izuku asked. He had already sent out his familiars to scout. The group was in the building across from them at the moment, and they were on the top floor with the hostages in the left corner. Hell yeah. Izuku smiled before the 2 hopped over to the other roof. Once they landed, Rumi brought her foot up and slammed it down, making a hole in the ceiling and taking down one more villain. He wasn't super hurt, though. When Izuku saw the lights, though, he smirked. Ah, Kei-chan, you remembered. Izuku chuckled before pulling out his staff and swung at the other team. Of course, Izuku, how could I forget? Kigo dodged once, but Izuku had grabbed onto his arm and dragged him forward before kneeing him in the stomach and making him go down. Rumi tied up the last of the villain team as Izuku used his knife to free the hostages. Hero team wins. The group of 5 were all at Izuku's place again, with the rest of the siblings sitting around on the floor, while the 5 took the 2 couches with Fuyumi sitting with Rumi and Ryoku. Why am I your guy's heater? Tuya asked, looking at the 2 teens laying on him. Izuku was laying across both of their laps, while Kigo was cuddled up to Tuya's side. "'Cause you have a fire quirk," Kigo explained, not even looking away from the TV with the news playing at the moment. Izuku didn't answer, though, seeing as he was asleep curled up on both of them. "How come you get a hog, Izuku?" Himiko yelled, standing at the edge of the couch. "'Cause we're his friends, Brad." Tuya called back with a playful smirk. "He's my brother, though." Shudo and Katsuki were both now close to the edge of the couch, too. Izuku stirred slightly, making both Tuya and Kigo jump a little. "Fine, you guys can sit with us. Just don't wake up the kitty." The 3 then climbed onto the couch and huddled close to each other and laid down on Izuku's chest. "Why is Midoriya so tired recently?" Ryoko asked. "Probably 'cause the boys keep him awake." Both Tuya and Kigo blushed before Kigo threw a pillow at the other girl, since Izuku wasn't fully on him. Shut up. And no, he's just been having a few bad nights is all. Rumi and Kigo didn't listen though, as Ryoku and Fuyumi had to make sure she didn't attack Kigo. Of course, I'm sure he'll be fine. Big surprise, Izuku wasn't fine. Ever since the hero training exercise and others like it, he kept being reminded of when he was alone and got bullied all the time, before he met Kigo and Tuya. He slowly began waking up and uncurled a little and stretched. Cat bois awake, Rumi yelled, even though she was just on the other couch. Morning sleepy kit, Kigo teased, poking Izuku in the face, who just swatted his hand away. Feel better? Tuya asked a little nicer. Izuku groaned and sat up a little and was surprised to see the three youngest now sitting on his legs. What did they jump up here? Izuku asked in a tired voice. The big babies were sad. We were hogging you. Kigo explained, making Katsuki glare at him. Did either of you get a single word in the English class? Tuya asked, looking at the paper like it was in a different language. Well, it was. I did. I'll help. Kigo chirped before looking at the paper and beginning to explain some of the words and meanings. Izuku ignored them as he looked over the math homework for that week. He turned upside down and slowly started sinking off the couch until his head was hanging off. Izuku, what are you doing? Kigo asked, now seeing the boy hanging off the couch. Izuku grunted, but didn't answer and only glared at the paper before he threw it and groaned. Are you dying? Is that what's happening? Kigo asked again. Izuku closed his eyes before sitting up quickly and looked at them. We should go for a walk. They both stared at him a little shocked and confused. Come on. I'm bored. Kitty, do you have a fever? Normally you're getting on us about doing homework. Tuya joked, making Kigo laugh. I know, but please. We haven't been out and about in a while. Just the three of us. Kigo and Tuya looked to each other. I don't see why not. Thank you. He tackled them both into a hug, making them all fall off the couch in a pile of laughter. The three walked around aimlessly and just talked about random stuff they had been doing, which wasn't much since they all did everything together for the most part. I don't know, you guys nervous about the sports festival? Kigo asked. A little, yeah. I think a lot of our class is going to go after us. Izuku explained with a shrug of his shoulders. Not like it's going to do much. We'll kick their asses anyway. Kigo and Izuku both rolled their eyes at Tuya, who was as cocky as always. Yeah, but what happens when we have to fight each other? Izuku asked while crossing his arms. I'm sorry, what? Tuchan, you know there's the 1v1s every year, so when we get to that point we might have to fight each other to win. They were all silent for a moment. Well, I'll just have to kick your guys' asses too. Kigo and Izuku looked to Tuya with a glare. Sure, Tuya, we'll see. Kigo teased, nudging the other before they both began play fighting. They were all sitting at the park relaxing under a tree, while Izuku was in the tree again. It was silent, none of them were talking, and it was the most relaxing thing they had done in weeks. Boys, get up! Inko shouted from the kitchen where her and Rei were making food. Izuku woke up with Kigo next to him and Tuya on the ground since Kigo kicked him off in a panic when they woke up. Pretty bird, why'd you kick me off? Tuya shouted, trying to stand up. Izuku laughed at him as Kigo rubbed his eyes confused. Why are you on the ground? Izuku broke down at that and laughed so hard he fell off the bed. 'Cause you kicked me down here. Izuku finally calmed down and took a few breaths before walking out of the room and going to wake up the others. He knocked on one of the doors before opening it. He saw Shudo, Katsuki, and Himiko all laying on the bed together in a nest of blankets. Get up, guys, breakfast. He picked up Himiko as he petted the other two's hair. All three woke up calmly and smiled before the other two climbed onto Izuku, Shudo in his other arm, with Katsuki on his shoulders. They were all still slightly sleepy, though. He walked downstairs, seeing the others already getting food before going to the living room. Oh, look, Mama Kitty finally came down with all his kittens, Kigo teased, making Izuku blush. Shut up, Kei-chan. He set the three down as they all walked to the kitchen and got food. He sat on Tuya and Kigo, laying across both of them. Hey, Izuku, they both shouted, making him yell. It's what you get for teasing me. He shouted, getting comfortable on them, After a moment, though, they settled back down and watched the TV. It was just playing some movie that none of them knew. At some point, the other three came back and sat on one of the open chairs together. Kigo petted Izuku's hair while Tuya played on his phone. "How was your guys' sleepover?" Rumi teased, sitting down with Ryuko. "The best. Like always." Kigo sassed back, lightly punching her in the shoulder. Ryuko smiled, watching the two play fight. "I'm glad you three enjoyed yourselves. Me and Rumi went to the mall." "Really? What did you guys get?" Izuku asked. Him and Ryuko got along well since they both like similar things. "Nothing much, really. We just went there to walk around." Ryuko blushed a little. Glad you guys had dash." Izuku cut off as he looked over. Kigo, Rumi, and Tuya were now all play, fighting. "I'll get mine, you get yours." She nodded her head before they both walked over. Izuku sighed as he grabbed onto Kigo and Tuya's arms. "Can you guys please calm down?" Both stopped and looked at him. "Sorry, Kitty. Sorry, Izuku." He smiled and let them both go as they all sat down as Nezu walked through the door. "Good morning, everyone. Today we announced the sports festival." "What do you guys think about the sports festival?" Tuya asked as the five sat down for lunch. "I think I'm going to kick everyone's asses and win the thing," Rumi declared with her foot on the table and standing in a victor position. "Rumi, please get your foot off the table." "Oh, you want to go, bunny girl?" "If anything, I'm winning." Tuya yelled back. Kigo pulled Tuya back down and chuckled. "We get it. You two are competitive." Kigo rolled his eyes with a smile. What's wrong, Birdie? Don't think you can win?" Rumi teased. "Oh, I'm more than confident I can take you all down." With that, the three almost started fighting again before Izuku and Ryuko stopped them. Izuku had recently found another aspect of his quirk. He hadn't told the others yet since he was nervous, but with the sports festival coming up, it could really help. He had found out one day that he could actually turn into a cat. He was training with the shadows, seeing if he could change his form when Mayumi suggested trying to turn other shadows into creatures like her and the others. His first thought was to turn it into a cat, and that's how he was here now. He was the size of a normal house cat. "Mayumi, what happened? What do I do?" he asked in a panic. The large shadow tiger sat there watching him. "You seem to have turned yourself into a house cat. Try imagining yourself in your human form, and it should reverse it." He focused, and soon he opened his eyes, seeing he was back to normal before screaming and falling. "Mayumi, I turned into a cat. How? What?" He was trying to think of how it could happen. As he mumbled, the clouds and flowers on his arms moved around in a quick manner, along with his ears going back, meaning he was still panicking. "Izuku," the boy stopped and turned to the tiger. "It may just be another aspect to your mutation. Since you act and behave like a cat and have the qualities of one, it makes sense that you would somehow be able to turn into one." Izuku thought about it for a second. "Do you think I could change how big I am? Or what kind?" Izuku asked. The shadow shrugged her shoulders. "Try focusing and see if you can." He nodded his head before sitting down into a meditative position. He took a few breaths before feeling himself change. It wasn't painful or anything. It just felt like when he was traveling through shadows. He opened his eyes and looked down at himself. While he didn't look different from his house cat he felt different, almost like he was stronger. Looking to the tree, he dug his claws and easily climbed to the top before jumping down and changing back. "Mayumi, Okami, Tokage, Hiro, did you see that?" The tiger Mayumi and bear Hiro nodded, while Tokage the dragon and the wolf Okami jumped and slithered around excitedly. "That's really impressive, Izuku." Okami cheered while Tokage slithered up his arm and sat there. "Thanks, but we should probably head back home." The class all stood in the prep room, all seeming to talk excitedly or messing with each other. "What do you guys think the rounds will be? Do you think we'll get to work together? What if we dash?" The group of four listened as Izuku rattled off questions and ideas he had about the festival. While they were all excited, it seemed like Rumi, Izuku, and Kigo were the most excited, or, as they like to call themselves, Animal Gang. "Calm down, Kitty. We'll find out soon," Tuya said while leaning against the lockers. "Shut up, Tuya. This is going to be so fun," Kigo shouted while jumping excitedly with Izuku. "I'm going to kick everyone's butt, including yours, Flame Beach," Rumi yelled, punching the boy in the shoulder. Tuya glared and punched her back, which would have resulted in another fight if not for the announcement to go out to the field. They all stood out in the field while someone from their class gave a speech about the festival, though none of them really listened. They just wanted to get on with the competition. Thank you for that great speech. But let's get to the real fun. A giant board was shown, and it began cycling through things like a slot machine before stopping on something. And the first round is an escape room race. Izuku was a little shocked. He hadn't ever seen something like this in the other sports festivals. Each person will be put into their own room. Each room is the exact same for all students, and there is a time limit to make it through each room. There are 5 rooms in total. The first 42 to make it through move on to the next round, or the 42 closest to finishing move on. The rooms were made by our very own Nedzu. Once everyone was in their rooms, the lights turned on and the cameras showed everyone. Room 1. Situation Awareness. This room has traps ready to fire at any time if the students aren't careful. Izuku looked around the room first. It looked like a normal office, but something was wrong with it. He couldn't tell what, but decided to stay on his toes. He could already see a few things almost out of place. There was a lockbox that needed a key, a safe under the desk, a computer, and the other door. He was about to take a step when something in him stopped him. He looked down and noticed small bumps on the floor. First obstacle is the mines. If stepped on, they won't cause damage, but they'll scare you. He noticed some others, spaced weirdly so it would be difficult to take a step if you were a normal person. He shifted to the house cat form and avoided all the bombs. He walked up to the safe and saw it needed a 5-digit code. He jumped onto the Raleigh chair to see the computer. Its screen displayed a sentence, "Check the chair." He stepped off the chair before changing back to his human form. He looked around the room more, and at the chair, there were rails on the ceiling that someone could grab onto, and it looked like the chair had a SWCH near the wheels. He pulled himself up before hooking his legs and hanging upside down. He moved the chair, and almost right away spikes jumped from the floor everywhere except where the desk was. He moved the chair back, and the spikes went away. Hopping down, he sat on the desk and picked up the chair and looked at the wheels. They all had a number and letter written on it. So 1 is U, 2 is A, 3 is R, 4 is O, and 5 is X. UAROX, real clever sensei. Izuku shouted with a smirk on his face. He put the chair back before going to the safe and typing out the code. The safe opened and showed 2 keys. One was black with a white lightning bolt on it, while the other was white with a black X on it. The symbols have to mean something. He took a step back and walked to the door. The doorknob had a lightning bolt on it over the keyhole. So that key goes there. Where does the other go? He looked at the lockbox. It had an X, but it was in red. That has to mean don't open, not just a color choice. So then the lightning key is the right one. He tried to pick up the key, but it shocked him. He dropped it with a yelp and cradled his hand. Maybe not. He walked over to the doorknob and looked at it. He was about to touch it when he felt the same tug as before telling him not to. Oh, you're clever. He used some of the shadows and wrapped them around his hand before picking up the key. The shadows absorbed the lightning so he could unlock the door and not get shocked. That's right. In the lockbox lies a small robot that will attack you. You need to figure out how to unlock the door with the shock key. Izuku was about to leave the key when he noticed something on it. In small writing, he saw the number 1 on it. He pulled it out of the door and realized it wasn't shocking him anymore. He stared at it before deciding to keep it on him. As he entered the next room, he heard something activate. He didn't notice it at first, but the room in the middle began to expand while the room on the outside began to shrink. Okay, there has to be something to activate a door to the middle room. He looked at the ground and saw a few tiles that had small scratches on them. He avoided them as he looked for something, though he was running out of time. Come on, if I was a secret door, where would I be? He stopped in front of one of the walls. He could see the outline of a door. He felt around the wall before pushing in on a certain part. The door pushed itself open slightly. He pushed against it and slowly opened the heavy door. As some of our students have realized, the scratch tiles in the second room trigger an Iron Maiden to fall and trap them. Once he entered the room, there was a giant hole in the middle. There was another noise before the room he was in began shrinking again. He looked around for a moment before spotting a hook on the ceiling and a rope nearby. He hooked the rope to the hook and tugged slightly. He noticed a number 2 written on the hook. He didn't get time to think about it, though, as he jumped down the hole. If they don't find the rope and force the room to push them in, they waste time. The rope stopped just a little above the ground in the next room. Izuku quietly got off the rope before tugging on it hard enough for the hook to come out. He caught the hook and rope. The numbers have to mean something. He put the hook with the key before tying the rope around his waist in case he needed it later. He looked around the room and noticed a robot that seemed to be deactivated, red lasers around the room like a spy movie, and a glass case holding a big diamond. The third room is stealth. If they wake the robot, it fires a BB gun at them. If they touch a laser, it burns them. They need to get the diamond and get out. He did another look around the room before waking up to the lasers. He got his hand close, but he felt the same tug that told him not to touch it. I could shift again. He looked at them all. They seemed close to the ground for that, though. It would be easy to move in this form, though. Tokage, go ahead of me and see if there are any more traps. The dragon nodded before slithering on the ground to where the diamond was and checked everything. In the meantime, Izuku got around the lasers, only getting burned a few times, but never waking the robot. Once past them, he looked at Tokage. The diamond has a pressure plate on it. If lifted, it will be trapped in a metal box and wake the security. I suggest using the rope. There is also a false door. If opened, something bad will happen. Izuku nodded while taking the rope. Thank you, Tokage. The dragon nodded before going back onto Izuku's skin. He walked up to the diamond and stared at it. Let's hope I get this right. He put the rope in one hand and quickly switched it with the diamond. Nothing happened. He breathed out and looked at the diamond. It had the number 3 on it, so the numbers did mean something. He looked at the door before taking a step back. Tokage said not to go to that door, so he looked to where the security bot was, and another door was there. Let's go back then. He put the diamond with the key and hook before he went back through the lasers, getting a few less burns than before. He looked at the door and saw it needed someone's hand to scan. It obviously wouldn't work on him, so that left the robot. He looked at the robot and saw a gauge labeled oxygen, so if that could work. He quickly wrapped his arms around the robot and covered its speaker. It thrashed in his hold as he watched the gauge go down. Once it stopped moving and the gauge was low enough, he let go and grabbed its hand and scanned it. The door to the next room opened. Any student that goes to the wrong will be chased by a boulder, but it looks like one is pulling ahead of the rest. A screen showed Izuku walking to the 4th room. The room was a long hallway with the design of an ancient tomb. There were markings on the wall, and the floors seemed to have tiles missing. Notes played in the background and seemed to be repeating themselves. He looked and saw the missing tiles in a pile, about 10 of them exactly. The music has to mean something. He picked up one of the tiles and pushed on it, causing it to make a note. That's it. The tiles relate to the song. You need to put them in the right order, then play them. He began listening closely to the song as he pushed the tiles until he got it right. Once he did, he placed them in their spots. He shifted into his cat form and jumped on each of the tiles to the music. Once he did, a pillar appeared with a shark tooth on it. He shifted back and grabbed onto the shark tooth, seeing "for" written on it. He walked out the door into the final room. Most of the students have made it to the 4th room, where they have to solve the tile puzzle for problem solving. But it looks like one of us has made it to the final room. This room is a combination of traps from all the other rooms. He saw lasers around the room, small bumps like the one from the 1st room, and if he wasn't wrong, then the walls were very slowly closing in. He looked around the room and saw small things on the walls, a lock for the key, a hole for the hook, and a tile for the shark tooth, but where was the diamond place? He ignored it for now and got through the lasers and bumps as carefully as possible. He put the key in and the hook, making the bumps disappear and the walls stop. So each part deactivates a trap, so the diamond deactivates the lasers, but what does the tooth deactivate? He didn't remember any traps from that room. He looked to where the tooth went. Something didn't feel right. If they were numbered, then weren't they meant to go in order? He couldn't put it in order, though, since he didn't know where the diamond went. God, I hope this gives me something to work with. He put the shark tooth in the tiles, and everything stopped. The lasers went away. He took a breath of relief until the room flooded with water. CRP. Where does the diamond go? The room flooded, quickly forcing Izuku up. That's when he noticed the tunnel in the ceiling. At the end of it, there was a place for the diamond. The water was rising higher and higher. He felt around, but couldn't find the diamond. SHD, he looked at the water and saw it at the bottom. He took a deep breath in and swam down and grabbed the diamond. He swam back up, but it took longer since the water was almost at the top. He took a deep breath of air before shoving the diamond into its place. The water quickly left the room, slamming him onto the floor. He coughed a little as a door opened. I hate water. He breathed out before walking out of the room. It opened back to the field where everyone had been watching. Midoriya, Izuku wins first place. He jumped and realized that he was the first one out. Yes. He jumped and cheered, but quickly noticed that he was still soaking wet and it was now cold. Not long after, more people began to file out, with Tuya getting second, Ryuko getting third, Rumi getting fourth, and Kigo getting fifth. As soon as Tuya was there, though, Izuku latched on him. Jesus, kitty, you're soaked. He brought his body temperature up, and Izuku purred. And you're warm. Kigo came out and immediately tackled the two, with Rumi and Ryuko joining in and cheering. Once the timer ran out and they cleared everything, everyone that passed stood in front of the hero from before, waiting to hear about the next competition. Next we have. They all waited for the screen until it showed capture the flag, capture the flag. In this game, you'll work in groups of 3 or more. Each team will have their own spaces and points to protect. Everyone will also be wearing a belt with your team's color of cloths. If the cloths get taken off, you are out of the game. But if only 1 or 2 get taken off, then you have to wait in that team's prison until another teammate gets you. Izuku was already thinking of who he wanted on his team, and here's everyone's points. Oh no, Izuku was F. It showed him having 1,000,000 points since he got first. Now he really couldn't ask Kigo or Tuya to team up. Everyone then split up into groups. Midoriya, let's team up. Rumi shouted, with Ryuko following her. Are you guys sure? We'll be the biggest targets. Rumi cheered while Ryuko nodded. Of course, it's better if we work with friends. Izuku almost cried, but hugged the two. I love you both so much. You too, Midoriya. Should we ask Todoroki and Takami? Ryuko asked. Izuku shook his head. Why the F not? You 3 hardly ever leave each other's side. Rumi shouted. We're all really competitive. They'll want to try and beat me or each other before we even think about teaming up. To emphasize the point, Izuku looked to Tuya and waved. The other then moved his thumb across his neck. Izuku returned the gesture. He did the same to Kigo, who only stuck out his tongue and made an L with his hand. God, you 3 are weird. They had the area separated for all the teams and gave them all everything they needed. Izuku, Rumi, and Ryuko all had chosen red for their color. So Midoriya, what's the plan? Rumi asked as they all huddled up. We need to protect our points. He picked up a ball that had their collective points on it, so we should put in the far back, but not too close to the prison. The two nodded as they began setting everything up. Once they were done, they talked a little more strategy and situations. But once the timer finished, it was all-out war. A good portion of the groups all ran to Izuku, Rumi, and Ryuko. Izuku had his shadow animals help guard the points in case someone did get past them. The 3 had gotten a good portion of the competition in their jail, already with their teammates joining them soon after. The only issue was that if the entire team was in jail, then they lost. Usajiyama, I'm going for the open teams. Izuku called. Rumi nodded while taking another person's cloth. He ran and jumped over people trying to get to an open area. Once he crossed the way, he was running towards the points when someone stepped in front of him. Come on, Zuku. I figured you would have noticed me coming. Kigo shouted while in a battle position. Sorry, Kei-chan. Didn't expect you in someone else's area. He didn't stop running, though, and slid under Kigo's legs. Kigo didn't give him time to think, though, as he sent large feathers his way. Izuku jumped and dodged. If he wanted to win, he needed to distract Kigo. Izuku turned and started running back towards Kigo. The other team was shocked and flew up. Luckily, that's what Izuku wanted. He jumped into the shadow created by the other and appeared in the shadow caused by the ball. He picked it up. Okami. Catch. He threw the ball as hard as he could to his own area. He saw Okami jump up and catch in their mouth before running and putting it with the other points. Wow, that was clever, Izuku. Kigo shouted from his spot in the air. But you left yourself open. Izuku jumped and barely dodged Tuya's fist before having to also dodge his foot. Tuchan, Izuku shouted, jumping before flipping away. Hi, kitty. Izuku had to start dodging feathers, fists, and kicks now, while trying to get back to his team that had mostly been left alone at this point. You guys teamed up? Kigo landed and used one of his bigger feathers to try and trip Izuku up. It didn't work though, as Izuku just caught it with his hands in a clap before shoving it to the ground. He jumped just as Tuya was about to slam his leg down and flipped before letting go and running. And time's up. Just as it was called, Izuku stopped running and took a breath. Thank God. He turned back to the two others who had stopped chasing after him. I didn't know if I could beat you too, or if I wanted to. He joked. The other two smirked before Kigo wrapped his arm around Izuku's neck and started rubbing his head. Oh please, you could have just trapped us down, Tuya announced walking past them. The team in first place is Team Midoriya, then Todoroki, Takami, and finally Team Suzuki. The three looked confused. They didn't remember anyone named Suzuki. Now please enjoy the break before we go to 1v1s. The five were all sitting around the table eating and talking about what they did during the first two competitions. Okay, but how does Midoriya keep kicking butt? Rumi asked jokingly. Are you kidding? This guy would probably fight Endeavor for fun. Tuya answered while taking a drink. I don't know. I kind of messed up during the first one. I didn't see where the diamond went and almost drowned. Izuku explained, rubbing the back of his neck. Same, Tuya said. Really? But you weren't. Oh yeah. Izuku smacked the front of his head. He kind of forgot Tuya could have just heated his body and made the water evaporate. Yeah, oh kitty, that's why you grappled onto me once I was out. You were drenched. Izuku laughed a little while rubbing the back of his neck. That was until someone slammed their tray into him. Hey, what's the big idea? Kigo and Rumi shouted. The person had orange hair and a smirk. Oh sorry, didn't mean to slam into the oh so great Midoriya. Izuku quirked an eyebrow a little confused. Just so you know, I plan on winning this thing. The guy then walked away with two others following. It doesn't seem pleasant. Ryuko stated, glaring at the boy. Could say that again. Hope I get to kick his butt. Tuya shouted, sending a glare to the retreating figure. Once the break was over, the classes all went to the spectator stands to wait for the fights. For our first fight, we have Midoriya vs. Watanabe. The pro announced. Izuku looked around. They hadn't heard of someone named Watanabe before. The other four looked around too till someone started laughing. Looks like I'll take you down, early alley cat. The group glared as the guy from before stood on the other side of the barrier. Hey, why don't you dash? Izuku cut Tuya off. It's fine. Let's get this over with, shall we? Izuku asked with a cat-like smirk. Tuya and Kigo could tell he was pissed by the fact his tail was swishing from side to side. Bring it on. The two stood across from each other. Izuku stretched slightly while Watanabe just stood there with a smirk. On the right, we have Midoriya of Class 1A, a feisty cat who's so far killed the competition. Izuku rolled his eyes at the announcement. And on the left, we have Watanabe of Class 1C, someone we haven't seen much of, but he made it this far. The other glared up at the booth with a growl. May the best man win. Izuku crouched low to the ground while Watanabe didn't move and only smirked. I plan on it. Just as the timer started, Watanabe disappeared. Izuku's eyes widened. He looked around trying to see the other, but he couldn't. Behind you. He flipped out of the way and landed on his feet, looking around confused. Did I scare the kitten? He whipped around and tried to kick the other, but nothing was there. He lowered his foot but stayed tense. He still couldn't see the other. A flicker of someone appeared in his peripherals. He turned and punched where they should be and was happy to be met with something there. Watanabe flickered for a moment and Izuku could see how angry he was. He jumped back away before the other disappeared again. Whoa, does he have a teleportation quirk? Izuku knew he didn't. If he did, it wouldn't make sense as to why he flickered like that. So it was an invisibility quirk. Izuku shifted a little and looked at the ground. It didn't matter if he was invisible, he would still have a shadow, and Izuku could use that. He focused for a second just to confirm that he did have a shadow, but he couldn't see one. He looked to the side and saw Watanabe fully there, and he did have one. He dodged the punch and retaliated with his own, making the other grunt and stumble before disappearing again. If he had a shadow, when he was visible, he could still use it. Is the cat having a little trouble? Or do you have your own tongue caught? Izuku twisted just in time to dodge a kick before grabbing the other's leg and yanking him to the ground. Wow, cat jokes. Haven't heard those before. When the other disappeared, Izuku lost the leg. It's like he's a ghost. He could turn intangible, not invisible. If Izuku could get him close enough to out of bounds, then maybe he could trick him. He walked slowly to the bounds and stood there, his back facing the open area. His ears twitched and turned every which way, trying to find any hint of sound. Looks like I win. Izuku smirked and grabbed the arm about to push him and flipped the other over the out of bounds. Not a chance. You did so good. Kigo tackled Izuku as soon as he walked through the entrance. Hell yeah. Kicked his butt. Rumi shouted, patting him on the back. You did quite well. Izuku laughed and hugged Kigo back. Thanks, guys. Where'd Tuchan go? He asked, looking around. Oh, it's his fight next. He's going against someone in our class. Kigo explained as they all sat down. Really? Who? You remember that brat from the first day of training? You know, the F beach. Rumi waved her hand a little with a roll of her eyes. You mean Ito? With the metal quirk. Rumi nodded her head before turning back to watch. Though there wasn't much to watch, Tuya just sent a wave of fire scaring the other girl and making her jump out of bounds on accident. A lot of the fights went like that. Not very interesting to watch, but still fun. So who's left? Kigo asked while they all sat around during halftime. It's me, you, Tuchan, Yusujiyama, Tatsuma, Suzuki, Nakamura, and Abe. Rumi and Ryuko looked at him in shock. How the F did you remember that? Izuku blushed a little. Kitty here has almost photographic memory, so he ended up memorizing the board apparently. Sorry, it was just kind of boring just sitting there. He defended, sinking into his seat while the others laughed at him. Who's going right now? Ryuko asked, sitting next to Izuku. He looked up for a moment. It should be Tuchan and Suzuki, though I don't really know anything about Suzuki. I think he has a strength quirk. Just as he said that, the ground cracked around Suzuki as he took off and tried to attack Tuya. You think Cat BOI? Rumi joked. The two fighting was pretty intense, well, more intense than the others. Anytime Suzuki got to close, Tuya would activate his quirk and push him back, the only issue being Tuya could only use it so much before it started to affect his body in bad ways. Though Suzuki seemed to only be able to use power in certain parts and leaving the rest of his body open. SHD, Tuya's gonna have at least a first degree everywhere. Kigo pointed out while on the edge of his seat. Izuku nodded, getting closer to the railing to get the full experience. Though that was a mistake apparently when fire got a little too close. Luckily, Kigo had acted fast enough and yanked the other back quickly. Thanks, Kei-chan. Kigo smiled and nodded as they both sat back down. Soon after that, Tuya was able to get him pinned, so he couldn't move. Who's next? Rumi asked, looking over Izuku's shoulder. Tatsuma and Nakamura. Ryuko's gonna kick there, but 2 minutes tops. Rumi announced happily while Tuya sat down on the other side of Izuku with a few ice packs. You good, Tuya? Kigo asked, holding one of the ice packs on his forehead. MH warm. He laid down across the two, but they didn't stop him. Now who's using us as a bed? Izuku teased, making Kigo laugh. Shut it. Tuya playfully kicked him in his leg while they got comfortable. After the first 3 rounds with Tuya, Ryuko, and Rumi winning, it was finally Kigo and Izuku's turn, though it was against each other. You know, Zuku, if you drop out now, no one will hold it against you. Izuku rolled his eyes. Sure, Kei-chan, and no one will be angry you lost now, will they? The two got into fighting positions, waiting for the timer to start. As soon as it went off, the two took off at each other. Kigo took one of his longer feathers and prepared to swing while Izuku dodged and slid in between the other's legs. He stood back up and tackled Kigo, though it didn't work as Kigo decided to lift himself off the ground and go into the air. If you wanted to fall for me so bad, you could have just asked Izuku. Izuku smirked before letting go of him and deciding to fall. Kigo knew he was going to be okay, but he still tried to fly down fast enough to catch him. Izuku laughed a little when he fell through the shadow Kigo created and waited a moment before jumping out again. He dodged Kigo's feathers again before tackling him and flipping him over his shoulder. He grabbed Kigo's arms and pinned them to his back. "Takami, can you move?" Kigo smirked before relaxing his muscles a little. "Nope. Midoriya wins." Izuku squealed as he jumped up, then hugged Kigo tightly. "Kei-chan, you did amazing. Your feathers are getting stronger than ever." Kigo blushed a little. "Oh, please, stop your flattery. You already won." "Who's next?" Izuku asked, sitting next to Kigo and Tuya. "It would be me against Todoroki." Ryuko stood up and bowed to Tuya before offering a hand. "May the best win." Tuya glared before looking to the arena and standing up. "I plan on it." The two stood across from each other, Tuya looking bored but angry and Ryuko looking blank. "Start." Ryuko took off first, starting to shift to her dragon form and aiming a slash at Tuya. He smiled and used his fire to push him up and over her. "That's a little risky." He used his fire and sent a powerful blast towards, pushing her a little. "And you're being risky as well. You'll burn out before this is over." Tuya knew she was right. He was already bad from the last few fights, and this one might tip it over. "Doesn't matter." He sent another powerful blast, but she simply took it. He smiled wider before sending another wave of fire. "It's useless, Todoroki. I'm immune to fire." He ran at her with his arms lit up and a wide smile. "But you aren't immune to force." He sent another powerful wave, pushing her even further. He added more force to it, though. He could feel the burn setting in. It was enough to push her back. "Tatsuma is out of bounds." "Yeah." "Tuchan." Both of the teens ran over to Tuya, who looked tired and warm. "You okay? That looked like it took a lot out of you." Kigo touched his cheek and jumped a little at the heat. "MH." He pushed past them and walked towards Recovery Girl's room. "Something's up." Izuku nodded, watching him walk away. "Do you have an idea what it is, Kei-chan?" Kigo shook his head. "You'll probably find out soon. You fight him if you win against Bunny Girl." Izuku nodded and got ready for his own fight. Next up, our very own Izuku Midoriya and Rumi Usajiyama. The two walked out into the ring and smirked at each other. "You ready to get your butt kicked, cat boy?" She was stretching her legs as she spoke. "You wish." He got in a low position, already having a solid idea of how it was going to play out. "Oh, really? Well then, game on. And go." The two ran forward with Rumi attacking first, aiming a kick to his face. He ducked and swung his own legs out, trying to trip her up. They both jumped back when neither attacked work and stared at each other for a moment before they both pounced. Izuku dodged a series of kicks from her, sending him back a little. He could see the line not too far away and knew if he didn't push back soon, he would be pushed out. Dodging another kick, his back was up against the line. "Seems like you're gonna get out early." He looked between her and the line before coming up with an idea. "Not yet." He shifted to his cat form and jumped over her. It confused her so much she was frozen in place, letting him push her out of the ring. "What the F?" Izuku was trying not to laugh. He hadn't told any of the others he could do that yet. "What the hell did you just do?" He was now laughing like a madman as she shook him. "I am sorry. I learned I could turn into a cat." She pulled him into a headlock and started messing up his hair and ears. "Stop it." "No, you played a dirty trick." They both were laughing at this point and walking off the stage. "Izuku, that was good, but you can turn into a cat," Kigo shouted with his wings flapping a little. "Yeah, was hoping to keep that a secret." Izuku looked over to Tuya, who looked mad for some reason. "Almost ready for our round 2, Chan." Tuya stood up, glaring at the ground before pushing past them. "Whatever, I'll kick your butt." Izuku looked at him worriedly, but replied, "We'll see." Next up, Tuya Todoroki versus Izuku Midoriya. The crowd started going wild as the two walked up. Izuku was still worried about him, since he seemed even angrier now. "Tuchan, what's going on?" Tuya didn't look up, but smiled wildly at the ground. "Get ready. You're about to lose, kitty. Go." As soon as it was called, Tuya raised his hand, small blue flames dancing on his palm before it almost exploded with fire. It rushed toward Izuku, who looked only in shock before jumping out of the way. "Tuchan, don't do that. You'll get dash." Izuku was cut off as another burst came rushing at him. Tuya only laughed a little. "What's wrong? Think you'll lose to me?" He set 2 more bursts at Izuku. He could already see the burns getting worse by the second. Izuku growled and used some shadows to wrap around Tuya's feet and yank forward, making him lose his balance. "Stop! You'll hurt yourself." Tuya stood up on slightly shaky legs, but with a wild smile. "Isn't that the point? To beat anyone at any cost, even if it means hurting yourself." He sent another burst that Izuku couldn't dodge fully in time, getting a small part of his arm burned. He grunted and held it close to him. He saw Tuya pause in fear before growling and getting ready for another attack. Izuku used the shadows again and wrapped them around the other's arm to try and stop him and give Izuku time. He knew what was up, but he needed to find out why. His eyes darted around the arena, looking for who he expected. Lo, and behold, the fiery man was standing near the railing with a smile. "That's not the point. You can't break yourself, Tuya." Kigo stood up from his seat and watched closely. He had also seen Endeavor and was worried for both of them. "No one wants someone who's weak, Izuku." Tuya broke out of the shadows and started running towards Izuku. "So let's finish this already." He aimed a fire punch at Izuku, who rolled out of the way, grabbing onto more shadows and tying Tuya down stronger this time. "You aren't weak." Tuya looked up when he heard the cracking voice. Izuku had tears in his eyes as he spoke. "You are so much stronger than you think." He saw Tuya's eyes drift to Endeavor and stepped in the way. "You aren't him, and he means nothing. Now focus on the fight." The shadows crawled away, and "Focus on me." Tuya glared, still angry and upset. He stood up and smirked at Izuku. "You wanted my attention, kitty? Well, you got it." Tuya ran at him, and this time Izuku didn't dodge, but retaliated with his own kick. The two at this point were fighting quirkless, and it seemed to be taking a lot out of Tuya, though Izuku figured it was likely from how much he used his quirk rather than actual exhaustion. Tuya was panting and barely standing at this point. "You're your own person, Tuya. You aren't weak. You aren't broken. You're amazing." Tuya had his own tears at this point. "God, I hate you. You're always so happy and nice about everything." Tuya dodged a hit. "I tried to kill you just now, and you're perfectly fine." Izuku laughed a little, knowing Tuya was in a better state of mind, a tired and emotionally exhausted one, but a better one. "I know, Tuchan, but that's why we're here, isn't it?" Izuku lightly shoved him as Tuya realized he stepped out of bounds. "To help others?" "Izuku Midoriya wins." Tuya glared but started laughing a little. "Okay, kitty, you win." Izuku and Tuya were both in the infirmary getting healed from the fight while Kigo yelled at them. "Are you both stupid?" He pointed to Izuku. "You fought him full well knowing what was wrong and even possibly made it worse." He turned to Tuya. "And you attacked at full power without a cooldown system." And at Izuku, both looked guilty. Baby bird dash, Kigo didn't let Tuya finish. "Nope, I'm not done yelling yet. You kept all that SHD inside until Izuku literally beat it out of you." He silently screamed before sitting down on Tuya's bed. "You can't do that, Tuya. Me and Izuku care about you. You need to talk to us." Tuya looked down sadly. "I know, but he got in my head, made me think you only liked me because I was strong and would leave when you found out I was weak." Izuku stood up and sat next to Kigo on the bed. "Tuchan, we wouldn't do that." Tuya sighed and leaned back with an arm over his eyes. "I know that, but..." Kigo sighed and finished the sentence for him. "But it seems real to you?" Kigo sighed again before cuddling up to Tuya's left side. "Come on, kitty. What are you doing?" Tuya asked as they both laid down. "We're going to kill you with love and affection." Izuku answered, pulling them both closer to each other. "Oh no, please, I have a wife and kids." They laughed a little before getting comfortable and falling asleep. The three had seemed closer after the sports festival. The group as a whole was closer, especially when it came to messing Izuku and his cat form. "Stop it!" Izuku yelled, running from Rumi, who only cackled. "Never cat boy. It's official. If you can turn into a cat, you're our pet." Izuku ducked and rolled out of the way only to be caught by Kigo. Kei-chan. He yelled at the other, who only held him tighter and giggled. Come on, Zuku. It'll look cute. Izuku grumbled, but melted into the arms nonetheless. Besides, remember when we were younger? Me and Tuya already called you our pet. Izuku blushed and glared at the blonde. You're seriously going to let her put a collar on me? Kigo only smiled at him. I hate every single one of you. Ryuko smiled and showed him the actual choker. It will look good with your hero costume, I think. He looked at the choker and had a slight smile. It was a simple black leather with a metal blue and red heart. In his head, he often associated blues and reds to Tuya and Kigo, which made him blush. Try it on at least. According to the make, it will stretch and change with your form. He took it from her and stared at it before putting it around his neck. Yes, pet cat achieved. Rumi cheered with a wide smile. Izuku felt Kigo's arms tighten around his waist, and he turned to the blonde, a little confused. Kei-chan. He was looking at Izuku with a blush before coughing and letting him go. Sorry, looks good though, definitely suits you. Izuku laughed a little at Kigo's reaction, and me and Tuya called dibs years ago. Zuku's our pet cat. Wait, he put it on. Tuya ran into the room and looked at the choker on Izuku's neck. Not bad, kitty. Izuku rolled his eyes and shoved the other playfully. And we totally did. Ask moms. They have proof. Rumi rolled her eyes. Well then I'm stealing the bird. You already have a pet dragon. What more do you want? They were all back in class within the week, having gotten a small break after the sports festival to rest and be ready for the next task. It's good to see you all back. I assume you had a good break. Nedza greeted as he handed them whiteboards and markers. But the break is over. We will be choosing hero names today. Once you choose one, come up to the front. Rumi was already writing something down with a smirk, while Ryuko seemed to be thinking of ideas. Hey, Zuku. Izuku turned to Kigo. Are you going to use Cheshire? I planned on using Hawks, 'cause you know. He ruffled his wings a little. Yeah, I think I will. I really like the name. Besides, you guys gave it to me, right? Kigo smiled wider as Tuya leaned up. Hey, help me pick a name. Izuku and Kigo turned around in their chairs to face him. What about Flash Fire? 'Cause you're so hot, Kigo teased with a smirk. Tuya smirked back before hitting him with the whiteboard. Very funny, birdie, but it's not a bad idea. What about you? Izuku tried to think Flash Fire was a good idea, but it was too on the nose, so was Hoxie guessed though. What about Salamander? Then we can all be matching. Kigo gasped and started shaking Tuya. Pick it. We have to match now. Tuya laughed a little. Fine, but if anyone makes fun of it, I'm blaming you both. The two laughed as they all wrote down the names before presenting them to the class. Everyone had interesting names. Izuku was a little surprised by Rumi and Ryuko's choices, though. He liked the name Mirko and Ryukyu. When he asked about them, they said they were names they had wanted to use since they were kids. Good. Now, since you've picked your names, it's time to pick your internships. If you didn't get any, you will be assigned a list to choose from. Choose carefully, everyone. They showed the amount of offers everyone got, and Izuku was happy to see that their group all got a large amount. You'll have till the end of the week to choose. Then you'll be going to their agency and interning with them for a week. So who did you guys choose? Izuku asked, still looking over his papers. He had looked up most of the heroes if he didn't already know everything about them. I went with the Rescue Hero 13. Tuya explained. Izuku remembered reading about them. I want to find ways to rescue people and protect them, more than just hitting the problem with fire. I'm still not sure. I want to go with someone who can teach me hand-to-hand and weapons. Can't rely on my quirk too much. Hawk said, looking through his own. What about you? You've been mumbling and writing lists for the past 5 hours. Izuku blushed and ducked his head a little. I don't know. Most of the heroes on here aren't what I'm looking for. I was hoping for maybe an underground hero or someone who works closer with police. Spotlights never really been me. Yeah, but you look so good in it, Kigo said with a smile, while Tuya took some of his papers and looked through them. Wait. Tuya pulled one of the papers out and searched up the name. Isn't this that underground hero that helped with our case? Izuku took the paper and read over the name before gasping. He ran upstairs and grabbed his notebook before looking through his notes. It is. They never actually answer my questions, though. Maybe I can ask them more with my internship. I'm choosing him. Izuku filled out the form before putting them back into his school bag. Can you two help me now? Kigo cried out. So who did you guys choose? Rumi asked as they all walked to class. I went with 13. They seemed cool. Ryuko seemed to brighten up. I went with them too. Tuya smiled. Hell yeah. They high-fived, making Rumi roll her eyes before looking at Izuku and Kigo. I chose Gunhead. I heard he teaches all his interns hand-to-hand and weapons, which is what I'm looking for. I chose an underground hero. He goes by Eraserhead. Oh yeah, forgot you wanted to go underground. Izuku nodded along. It's a good idea with my quirk, and I can help more people if I'm not in the spotlight. Well, I chose Gang Orca. He seems awesome and is strong as hell. Rumi cheered as they all sat down. Really? I mean, he is strong. Only drawback for him would be his need for water. The two of you working together would be interesting too, and dash. Rumi listened as he talked about the pros and cons of working with a hero while the others had their own conversation. Hey Ryuko, you like making jewelry, right? Kigo asked the girl. She nodded her head a little confused. Well, I have an idea for something and wanted your help. Think you'd be up to it? Of course, what is it? He pulled out a piece of paper and handed it to her. Not letting Tuya look at it, I see, of course I'll help. Thanks so much. If it weren't for you, I'd be dead. Jesus, Birdie, it's not the end of the world. Yes, it is, Tuya. Izuku and Tuya were sitting on the couch while Shudo, Himiko, and Katsuki sitting on the ground and doing their homework. Where are Fuyumi and Natsuo? Izuku asked, looking up from his notes. They went out with moms, remember? Something about a shopping trip. I don't remember. Where's Burr Boy? He's with Ryuko and Rumi. Said he was working on something with them. Tuya looked up from his phone, confused. What? Those three rarely hang out without us. Maybe they're changing that. Tuya sat up and looked to the three on the ground. Brats! Katsuki glared at him and threw a pencil that Tuya caught. You know what's up with Kigo? Himiko raised her hand. Tuya pointed at her to talk. Kei said not to tell you, because it's a secret. She looked proud of herself. Tuya glared harder and crossed his arms. Why is it a secret? Shudo raised his hand this time, but didn't wait to talk. Because you're nosy. Katsuki burst out laughing while Himiko giggled. Izuku was trying to hide his laughter, but was failing miserably. Oh, you think so, Brad? Tuya stood up and started chasing after Shudo, who was giggling. Come back here. Tuya caught him and started tickling him. And no, stop it. Shudo was in tears. He swatted at Tuya's hand, but jumped when Tuya's hand was frozen in ice. Are you okay? The others ran over, hearing the shout. Shudo looked petrified. Whoa, it's okay. Tuya heated his hand, causing the ice to melt. See, all better. It's okay. Shudo still looked worried as the other three crouched next to them. What happened? Himiko asked, trying to reach out to Shudo, who flinched back. She moved her hand away nervously. Half and half, what the hell? Katsuki looked at the other. He didn't look hurt, but he seemed scared to touch them. Sho-chan. Izuku used the shadows to cover his arm. It's okay, come here. Izuku picked him up, but he still seemed freaked out. What if I hurt you, though? Izuku smiled and pet his hair back. You couldn't hurt us, okay? Your quirk activated is all. He sat on the ground as Tuya sat next to them. It's okay. Remember when you learned about Himiken and Kaken quirks? You won't hurt us. Himiko and Katsuki scooted over to them, both holding on to Izuku and Tuya. How does it feel? Are you cold? Tuya asked. His mom always felt colder than other people. Why, yes. No? And my right side is cold, but my left feels warm. Tuya grabbed his left hand. It did feel warmer than before. Try focusing on your hand. Think of a small flame appearing like this one. Tuya created a fire in his hands and showed it to Shudo, who closed his eyes and scrunched his face. A second later, his hand caught on fire, though it wasn't blue like Tuya's. Look, I did it. Katsuki and Himiko started cheering excitedly as Izuku and Tuya smiled. You did. Now do the same thing with your right, but imagine an ice cube. Shudo did the same as before, and an ice spike appeared. Good job. Izuku ruffled his hair. That's amazing, Sho-chan. Does this mean I can be a hero like you? Shudo asked, looking at Izuku and Tuya. Of course, you could be whatever you want. Tuya encouraged. All three of you can if you want, Izuku gasped, getting an idea. We could train you guys. If you want, of course. I want to be like Izuku. Himiko cheered, starting to run around excitedly, Shudo wiggling out of Izuku's hold and chasing after her, making her squeal and run faster. Don't leave me out. Katsuki stood up and started chasing them both around the living room. The two teens laughed a little before Tuya got a serious look on his face. If we were still with that, but Tuya didn't need to finish the sentence. Izuku could already imagine where it was heading. But you're not. He grabbed Tuya's hand and pulled him into a hug. You're all with us. Not there. The two stood there holding each other before Izuku pulled away. We have to tell the others. They'll be so excited. Tuya rolled his eyes as Izuku dragged him back to the couch and called their moms and Kigo. Do you really have to go? Himiko asked, tugging on his sleeve a little. Izuku chuckled and picked her up. I'll be back soon, okay? It'll only be for a week. Himiko puffed her cheeks up and crossed her arms. Himiko, don't be like that. He pulled her into a hug before gasping, wait, I'll tell you a secret. Himiko lit up. Tell me. Tell me. He smirked and sat on the bed with her. When we were young, I made Tuchan and Keichan a flower crown. I still have the one they made. He nodded toward a laminated flower crown that was on his bookshelf in a frame. How about when I get back, we'll go shopping and get you one. And make it out of fake flowers, so you can have any color and it'll last forever. Really? Can we? He laughed a little and nodded. Can I make one for Sho and Kat? She was bouncing now, making him laugh again. Of course. So while I'm away, you think about the flowers and colors you want, okay? That way, when I'm back, we can start right away. But keep it a secret. He whispered the last part with a finger over his mouth. I'm good with secrets. S-H-H-H-H-H. He ruffled her hair and picked her up. That's right. S-H-H-H-H-H. Now let's go say bye to the others, okay? I have to meet my class at the train station soon. Saying goodbye to everyone was an experience. Fuyumi, Natsuo, Rei, and Inko had all been excited and wished him luck, but Shudo, Himiko, and Katsuki had all been close to crying when they left. Can't believe the brats cried when we left. Tuya laughed a little, but Izuku could see he was just as nervous to leave them. They'll be fine. I'm sure they'll annoy Natsuo and Fuyumi a lot for us. He nudged the other, making him smirk before pushing him back. Keichan. Izuku ran over and pulled the blonde into a tight hug, who hugged back. Zuku, too. I have a present. Izuku pulled back a little confused as Tuya joined them. A present? Is it why you've been secretive lately? Kigo blushed a little and nodded his head before pulling out 2 black boxes. Just open them. The two opened the boxes and pulled out a gold chain. On the end of it was a small red feather. Kigo, is this? Tuya held it carefully in his hand, inspecting it. Kigo lifted his hand a little, making both of the feathers start floating. Whoa. I just thought. Kigo rubbed the back of his neck before taking a deep breath. Look, I like both of you. A lot. And, oh God, I'm bad at this. He covered his face as Tuya started laughing. F you, Tuya. Kigo punched him in the arm, only making him laugh harder. Izuku giggled before getting their attention. I like you both a lot, too. He put the chain around his neck. It somewhat matched the choker he kept, but this is not a good place to confess. He was blushing like a madman since he could see their classmates not too far away. Kitty's right. How about this? Tuya slung an arm around both of them. When we get back, we'll go somewhere nice, just the 3 of us, and then after we'll see where it leads. The two stared at him before Kigo spoke. Wow, you sound smart for once. Tuya glared and smacked him upside the head. That's the last time I give a good idea. The two started to play fight as Izuku rolled his eyes and walked over to Rumi and Ryuko. Did he actually confess just now? Rumi asked with a large smirk on her face. Izuku blushed and nodded his head. Sorta, Tuchan said we should go out when we get back and actually confess, not in front of train. Rumi started laughing hysterically as Ryuko nodded her head in understanding. F you, bunny. Tuya raced over and tackled her as the two started fighting, with Kigo cheering Tuya on. Students, the 3 messing around stood up straight, hearing Nedzu's voice. I'm glad to see you're excited. Let's get going then. You all know where you need to be. The students started walking to their trains or towards their agencies. I hope you all have a good time and learn a lot. Ryuko hugged them, with Tuya hugging Kigo and Izuku before punching Rumi in the shoulder. See you losers. Get ready to lose when we get back. Rumi flipped them off before turning to the other two. You heard the burnt beach. Prepare to lose when I get back. I'm training with the best. Rumi waved and ran to her train. Good luck, Izuku. I'm sure you'll be amazing. Kigo left to go to his bus before Izuku went on his own. Izuku looked at the building in front of him. It wasn't large like other hero agencies, and he was thankful for that at least. He walked into the building and was greeted with a woman at the front desk. Hello. You must be Eraser's intern. He nodded his head. Just go down the hall, and to the left, it's the training area. Thank you, miss. He walked down the hall like she said, and came to the door. He nervously knocked before opening it. For some reason, he felt like he should be careful. Eraserhead? The woman at the front dash. He ducked when strips of fabric came at him. He rolled out of the doorway and quickly pulled his jacket off before getting into a fighting stance. Not terrible, at least. Then a figure came at him. He dodged and sent a kick to their side, only for it to be caught and flipped on his back. He kicked out again, making them let go before he was wrapped in cloth. You need work. He was shocked for a moment before realizing who it was. Eraserhead. The older man only glared at him. Why exactly did you choose me for your internship? And don't even think about lying, I'll know. The cloth around him tightened at the question. Oh, WL, I remembered you from back when you helped Tuchan and his family. And you work with the police, it seems, and an underground hero. It's the kind of hero I want to be. Eraserhead stared at him for a moment before letting him go. You have some potential. Izuku smiled wide, getting a small glare. You have 2 days. If you don't show any improvement, I'm sending you back to Nedzo, understand? Yep, I'm ready. Eraserhead smirked before swiping Izuku's feet out from under him. Izuku flipped and landed back on his feet with a smile. Good. Lesson 1. Always be prepared. 12 a.m. Show you to Aizawa, for the love of God, please tell me you got the cat kid as your intern. I am begging you not here to make friends. I did. Why? 12 a.m. Hizashi Yomi, 2,000 yen a minute. She's not here to make friends. Did you seriously bet if I would take him on or not? Maybe 12 a.m. Most definitely You really like cats. Show not here to make friends. That is not why I chose him, and you know at 12 a.m. Completely irrelevant. You like cats, and he's a cat not here to make friends. I regret every decision that led me to you. Good, you're done. Izuku nodded as he adjusted his gloves. Eraserhead walked around him before nodding. You have weapons too. Know how to use them? Izuku nodded again and pulled out his staff before making it full size and spinning it a few times. I've been learning it for a while. I also know how to use the knife. He spun the knife in his hand before putting it back, and I can also create weapons from shadows. He pulled shadows from the corner of the room and wrapped it around his staff to create a battle axe. And it does damage. Izuku smiled, took his glove off, and touched the blade before pulling away and showing a small amount of BLD. HM, let's see how well you fight with the staff. No quirks. They both walked to separate areas of the room before lunging at each other. Izuku ducked under the capture weapon before spinning the staff and aiming for his legs. Eraserhead jumped before aiming a kick at Izuku, who blocked it with his arms. He grabbed onto one of the other's legs before dragging him down a little. Eraserhead kicked out before switching hand-to-hand. Izuku dodged a punch and sent one of his own that was caught before Izuku twisted out of it. They stood away from each other, catching their breath before jumping at each other again. Kigo looked at the agency before walking in. He looked around for a moment before someone got his attention. Good. You made it safe. He smiled and jogged the rest of the way to Gunhead. Are you ready to get started? Yep. I'm super excited. He pumped his fist into the air. Gunhead smiled and did a cutesy pose. Fantastic. Kigo only smiled wider, trying not to laugh at the hero. He would need to tell Izuku and Tuya about this later. First, I'll give you a tour and show you how we do things around here. Then we'll get a gauge on your skills. Kigo nodded and followed after Gunhead as they began walking around the agency. So are you and Rumi ever going to be a thing? Tuya asked Ryuko as they sat on the train. I'm not sure. We have been close for a very long time, but I don't think it's the same as you three. What you three have is very special. Tuya blushed a little and rolled his eyes. Yeah, I'm lucky to have them. Ryuko smiled before standing up. I believe this is our stop. They both stood up and walked out, quickly finding their way to the agency, seeing 13 waiting for them. Hello, I see you both made it. Ryuko shook hands while Tuya nodded to them. We'll head inside and do a quick tour before going through some questions. The two nodded before following 13 inside. Rumi was practically bouncing as she got inside. You made it. She turned and smiled wide, seeing Gang Orca. Let's not wait out here for long. Follow me. She walked next to him excitedly. They seemed to be going to his office. When they got inside, they both sat down on different sides of the desk. As Gang Orca stared her down, she only crossed her arms and smirked. Why did you choose me? Because you're a badass. I want to be able to fight like you. You're a great hero. Why did you choose me? So I can still fight without using my quirk. Can't be a one-trick bird. Why did you both choose me? To save people without just lighting the problem on fire. I don't want to be like my dad. I want to make a difference. I want to save everyone I can without violence. Animals plus to Godzilla. Oh, Godzilla. This is the best toothless. 13 is a great teacher. It's only the first day, and I feel like I've learned so much. Daffy Duck. Gunhead's cool. He's kind of fun too. He did like this cutesy pose thing, and I would die for this man Bugs Bunny. Not as cool as Gang Orca Beach. He's the best. Daffy Duck. I will fight you right now, Bugs Bunny. Bring it, you overgrown bird Godzilla. Nah, 13 got 'em both beat. Don't even Daffy Duck. I won't fight 2 cause he's too pretty to hurt, but I'll still get you Bugs Bunny. Gay Toothless. I think it's sweet Godzilla. 13 could be the best they slash them hero, but I'll back up Birdie cause he gave me a necklace Godzilla. Did you just move the necklace to pat my face? Daffy Duck. I plead the American fifth Toothless. Does anyone know where Izuku is? I feel like you should be able to answer now. It's pretty late, Bugs Bunny. Do the necklace thing. Wake the beach up. Hello, Kitty. Is everything all right? Hello, Kitty. Oh? Yeah, I'm fine. Sorry. I was training some more before bed. Godzilla, why? Hello, Kitty. I have 2 days to prove I'm actually worth something, or he'll send me back to school, Daffy Duck. 2. Izu babes. I will kill that man if he says you're worth nothing. Hello, Kitty. Please don't. Double frowny face. Bugs Bunny. Look, you made him sad, Godzilla. No, please do, pretty bird. No one talks like that to you, Kitty. Hello, Kitty. No. Really, it's fine. I know I'm not worthless thanks to you all. He just means potential, and I plan on proving it. Toothless. That's very sweet of you, Izuku. I'm sure you'll do amazing, Daffy Duck. That's so sweet. I want to cuddle you, Godzilla. Slap him with a feather like you did me, Bugs Bunny. Again, they're gay, your honor, Izuku panted before blocking another fist. He grabbed the wrist and twisted it before flipping over the other and kicking them in the back of the knees. He jumped back when a foot tried to connect with his chest. He missed the other foot, though, as it tripped him before he was pinned to the ground. They both sat there panting before Eraserhead got up and walked to the door. Drink water, 5-minute break. Yes, sir. Izuku let out a sigh as he flopped back onto the ground. He used his quirk and grabbed his water, drinking a ton before staring up at the ceiling. He was honestly terrified. Today was the last day to prove himself, and he felt like he hadn't at all. His fighting hadn't improved. Quirked or quirkless, he was still slow on his reaction times, and he could always use work using his staff and quirk together that wasn't sloppy and untrained. He could feel tears coming to his eyes before feeling the feather around his neck move a little. A small smile graced his lips, thinking about all the fun Tuya and Kigo were likely having at their internship. Standing up, he whipped his face before doing a few stretches and taking a few more drinks from his water bottle. Midoriya. He looked to Eraserhead, who had come back in with a stack of papers. Sit. Izuku sat on the bench as Eraserhead stood in front of him with a glare. I told you, you had 2 days to show improvement. Izuku looked down a little with his ears going back. Do you think you did it? Izuku rubbed his arm a little. No, he paused, waiting for the other to say something before continuing. I haven't improved with my fighting style. With or without my quirk, my reflexes are still too slow, and I'm sloppy with using my staff and quirk together. He finally looked up to Eraserhead. I think I failed honestly. They stared at each other. one looking bored while the other seemed upset but accepting. Eraserhead dropped the files onto the bench before sitting down. This is a kidnapping case. I'm working on it with the local authorities. They want us to patrol these areas tonight. I'm trusting you to listen to me when we're out there. Izuku was shocked into silence. What? Eraserhead sighed. You've shown a 30% improvement on your fighting, quirked and quirkless. Your reflexes have heightened double what they were, and you've shown great progress with using your quirk and staff together. Eraserhead gave a predatory smile. And you just passed the final test. You have potential. Izuku sat there shocked before tackling Eraserhead into a hug. Thank you. Eraserhead was shocked. Izuku soon let go. Oh, God, I am so sorry. I was just so upset, and then you said that, and then I was happy. You were there. Oh, God, I'm crying. Eraserhead stared at the other before standing up. He pet the other, making him stop and look at him. It's fine, kid. Get changed. We need to patrol soon. Izuku beamed. Right. As soon as Izuku had been ready, they had left to go to the police station. Izuku was ecstatic. He had picked the right internship. When we get there, don't wonder. Got it? I don't want to hear about how you messed up evidence. Yes, sir. Eraserhead nodded at him as they walked in. Izuku looked around the area and waved to some of the shadows and people when they looked at him. As they were walking, he could hear people yelling. He recognized one of the voices right away as the detective that had helped with Tuya's case. Sakachi. The detective looked over and sighed. Erasure. Good to see you. He looked to Izuku and smiled, offering a hand. You must be his intern. You go by Cheshire? Izuku nodded. He looked around the room a little and saw papers, pictures of the scenes, different theories, everything. It looked like his room when he got really into analyzing things. Let's not waste time. What do we know? He let go of Izuku's hand and grabbed some papers explaining and showing them to Eraserhead. It's a kidnapping gig, like you said. They're taking people with considered weak quirks or mental quirks or villain quirks. Izuku flinched a little at the last part, though he began walking a little and looking at the information, or homeless people. Sadly, with how things or those people are considered unnoticeable, people won't miss them. We still haven't figured out some of the quirks, though. Izuku frowned a little as he pulled down a picture. It was of burned ground. The formation around it was weird. He saw a note saying it was a fire quirk, but that didn't make sense. This one's a lightning quirk. Both adults stopped and looked at him. He blushed a little before explaining. The burned ground makes people think fire, but the area around it looks strange, like cracks rather than like burned paper. Lightning using does that when it strikes the ground. It looks like a pretty strong quirk if they can do that. He looked at some of the other photos. It looks like they can make it travel through their body. It's why some of the burn marks look like footprints. I think they might be around 6 feet 4 inches and around 190 pounds. How did you figure that out? Sakachi asked, a little shocked. The shoe size and how deep the ash around the foot was. Look at the files and photos and tell me what else you can figure out. Better yet, write it in this. Sakachi handed him a notebook and pen. Izuku smiled as he started looking through everything. I'm so glad you kept him. Eraserhead smirked. He has potential. A couple hours later, he handed the notebook back to Sakachi. It was almost full with the quirks, heights and weights, and the weaknesses they may have. Do you remember all of this? Izuku smiled and nodded his head. Good. You and Erasure will head out. Okay. He bounced over to Eraserhead, who seemed already ready to go. Let's go. They left the building, and Eraserhead immediately went to the roof with Izuku climbing up after him. This is the route we'll be following. Stay close to me, got it? Yeah. Eraserhead nodded before they began going through the route. They had hooked Izuku's mic and earpiece to the comm in Eraserhead's ear so they could talk to each other without being next to each other. Hear anything? Izuku's ears twitched and turned, searching for something. Nothing yet. Eraserhead hummed as they continued. It was silent again until Izuku heard a quiet scream. Someone screaming. Eraserhead whipped around. Where? Izuku pointed to their left before they both started running towards them. He kept an ear out to try and pinpoint their location. He told Eraserhead when to turn and when to keep going forward. There! Izuku pointed down to an alley, just as the screaming started again. Stay behind me. You have permission to use your quirk. Eraserhead whispered as they climbed to the top of a building. Izuku nodded. When they looked down, they saw a woman backed against the wall, with 3 men cornering her. The two jumped down at the same time. They put space between the group and the woman, all of them soon fighting. Izuku kept an eye out for Eraser while dealing with his own guy. He seemed to have an electricity quirk, and that's when Izuku realized who they were. Erasure they dash. He was cut off as he heard something being loaded duck. Just as he said that, Eraser ducked and a dart hit one of the men he was fighting. He turned and saw the woman with a scowl. "DM in it, kid. Keep your mouth shut next time." Izuku growled as he charged at the woman, knocking the gun down before shoving her against the wall. Soon both of them were fighting 1v2. Izuku was having trouble since it seemed the lightning weakened him due to the light it made, and Eraser had ended up fighting 2 mutant-type quirks. At some point, Izuku had called out his shadows to help them, but even with that, they were having trouble. Once Izuku realized keeping them out was draining his energy, he called them back, trying to use the shadows to hold them down, but it wasn't working. "Eraser we dash." He heard a loud smashing and crushing sound. He saw Eraserhead bleeding on the ground. Growling, he pulled the shadows around him and used them to create a battle axe. It kept them away from him and Eraser, but not for long. The lightning user got close enough and made skin contact. "Lights out, kitty." He felt the electricity before he felt the pain. It felt like his insides were burning from the inside out. He could see his veins lighting up, and even where the black covered his arms were glowing. Then he finally heard and felt it. The shadows screamed and cried out, but they were trapped. He felt them bursting away from his skin before they seemingly turned to ash and disappeared from him. He felt the light finally die out before he collapsed over Eraserhead. He could still hear the screams as he felt his body twitch and finally give out. Kigo jumped a little at the weird feeling. It felt like something zapped him for a moment. Pulling out his phone, he opened the chat that he, Tuya, and Izuku had. The boys read, "Hey, did either of you just get shocked or something?" Blue, "Nope, I'm chilling in bed." Blue, "It's Proly the kitty. He might be training again. I wouldn't worry about it." Red, "Okay, but we're calling him in the morning." Blue, "I know, Birdie, don't worry. He'll be fine." Daria, Izuku, gasping in air. Izuku shot up from his position on the floor. He could still hear ringing in his ears and burning in his bones. Izuku placed a hand where Mayumi and Tokage were, flinching when he felt pain. He looked at his arms and could only see black, the clouds and flowers no longer light grays or white, but simply gone. He tried looking for them, Mayumi, Tokage, Hiro, Okami, but they weren't there. He couldn't feel them. They weren't saying anything. They weren't anywhere. He felt a hand touch his shoulder. He jumped away, his eyes finally focusing on Eraserhead. "What?" Eraserhead stared at him before speaking again. "What happened?" Izuku zoned out again, trying to think. He rubbed at his head a little. "They got you down. I was able to fight them off for a while until..." He looked at his arms again before shaking his head. "Until the lightning user hit me with his quirk." Eraserhead nodded, standing up. Izuku quickly noticed they weren't in the alley anymore. They were in a small cell with a dirt floor and something wrapped around their wrists. "Quirk canceling," Izuku noted out loud as he stood up. He looked at his arm, this time at the lightning burn. It was close to his shoulder, then branched off toward his wrist and face, stopping just a little over his chin. "How long was I out?" "I only woke up a few minutes ago. Maybe 10. Otherwise, I have no idea." Izuku quickly noticed that most of their gear had been taken. He was left with his shirt and pants, but nothing else. They had left Eraserhead with his own clothes and took his belt, scarf, and goggles. Feeling around his neck, he could feel the choker and necklace still there. He was happy he at least had those. "Do we know what they want?" Izuku had a pretty good guess. It wasn't hard to assume the worst. Eraserhead looked to him. It wasn't with anger or annoyance, just acceptance and sadness. Izuku looked back, but he didn't feel the same. He knew they were in the worst possible outcome, but he didn't care. He was going to make these people pay for what they did to those people, what they did to them, and what they did to his family. Izuku walked over to the door, looking through the bars, trying to see if anyone was nearby. He looked to the lock and placed his hand on it. He wished he had his quirk to figure out the shape and make something to open it. Cheshire. The teen looked to Eraserhead. "Someone will notice when we don't check back in." We won't be here long. Izuku smiled. Eraser could see he was strained, though. No. Izuku looked at his arms again, the burns that drifted into the black part of his skin. It was white like actual lightning going down his skin. His eyes drifted back to the bracelets he wore that were canceling his quirk. He twisted them a little and noticed they were loose enough. With a little help, he could slip them off his wrists. Oh, good. You're both awake. They both turned back to the door and saw the same woman and the man with electricity. Izuku backed up as Eraser stepped in front of him a little. No need to be so hostile. The treatment says otherwise. Eraser growled back. Izuku glared and lowered himself a little. Well, it can't all be a 5-star hotel now, can it? She smirked and looked at Izuku, who tensed further, ready to jump at any moment. I was only expecting you, Eraserhead, but imagine my surprise when you have a little cat with you. The red lipstick stood out against her pale skin. Is he your brother? Son? In turn, Eraser stepped into her view of him with a glare. Why were you looking for me? She looked back to him and smiled. Well, Eraser, you have an amazing quirk. We even have a buyer. What? He growled out. Izuku could practically hear his muscles tensing, trying not to attack the woman. It was actually quite easy. She took a cigarette out and twisted it between her fingers. Apparently they tried to get you when you were young, but your friend got in the way. Izuku watched as his whole demeanor changed. Heard he's still kicking. Maybe you'll see him soon. The two walked away as Eraser backed up into the wall before sliding down it. Eraser? Izuku asked cautiously. He crouched near the other, but stayed a good distance. When the other's breathing picked up, Izuku got worried. Eraser, can you hear me? When there wasn't a response, Izuku moved to be in front of the hero, Aizawa. That seemed to catch his attention. Can you hear me? The hero nodded a little. Okay. Can I touch you? It took longer than before for Eraser to answer, but he nodded. With the confirmation, Izuku carefully placed his hands on the other's shoulders and guided one hand to fall against his chest. I need you to follow my breathing, okay? He began taking exaggerated breaths. It took a while, but soon Eraser had calmed down enough to breathe normally again. He rubbed at his eyes. I'm sorry. Izuku smiled. You don't have to be. You just learned something horrible. He looked to one of the walls with a glare. If I learned, any of my friends felt that. He didn't say anything else, but looked back to Eraser. Besides, when we get out, I promise we'll fix this. He offered a pinky, making Eraser look at him weirdly. The kids make me do it a lot. He rolled his eyes before they linked pinkies. Do you have any ideas? Eraser asked as they stood back up. If we get the door down, then we can run. But if we get lost, it won't mean much. Izuku twisted the bracelet around his wrist with a smile. I do actually. He walked into one of the corners and whispered. He had already seen the cameras and figured out the blind spot. They're planning something. They've been kidnapping people and talking about buyers, but she didn't mention anything about selling me, so they have a different plan. Makes sense. You have a powerful quirk, though it can still be considered villainous. It matches the description. He smiled and held onto the 2 necklaces he wore. Only issue is my family and friends will notice quickly. He paused as his eyes widened. Kei-chan. What? Izuku started bouncing excitedly, but kept his voice down as he lifted the red feather necklace. Kei-chan. He made this from his own wings. He's able to move and control it. He can also tell when something happens to it. When I was shocked, he must have felt it. So he already knows something's wrong. We never really got to test it fully, but if I break it, he'll know something's wrong. He unclipped the necklace and handed it to Eraser. Here's the plan. You BSDRD. The woman and man from before came running down the hall, hearing the shouts and what sounded like fighting. OSCK'd up. If you can't deal with this, then you'll never be a hero. They came to the front of the cell and saw Izuku pinned under Eraser as they glared at each other before Izuku flipped their positions and punched him in the jaw. Go in there and stop them, she demanded as he opened the cell and grabbed onto Izuku, shocking him again before throwing him outside of the cell and kicking him in the stomach. It looks like we'll be moving ahead of schedule. She turned to Eraser and glared. I suggest you sit there and shut up or we sell you early. He glared but sat down anyway, watching as they dragged Izuku away from the cell. Izuku smiled a little as he slipped off one of the bracelets. As soon as it was off, he connected to the shadows and was able to map everything and find the exits. He He sipped it back on as they came into a room with a chair. The original idea was to break both of you slowly, but you seem to be causing problems. He fought back as the man strapped him to the chair. He could feel the leather cutting into his skin with how tight the other made it so. We're going to go through some tests. We've learned that when put under extraordinary stress, your quirk can evolve. He felt his eyes widen before water was dumped on him, making him choke for a moment. Be a deer and scream for us. He felt himself back up against the chair as the man walked closer, lightning dancing in his palms, until all he could register was pain. Aizawa waited till they were out of sight before going back to the corner. He broke the feather in half before getting another idea. He pulled the fuzzy parts off until it left two stick-like objects for him. He used them to pick the lock on one of his bracelets. When it popped off, he smirked before putting it back on, but not activating it. He walked over to the door and felt around the lock. If he could get the bracelet off, maybe he could. His thoughts were cut off as he heard screaming mixed with what sounded like a roar of some kind. He hid the pieces of the feather as suddenly the door they had gone through was broken down. He watched as a black panther roared and ran towards the cage. It growled at him before seeming to recognize him. The roar changed into screaming as the panther slowly turned into a person. Izuku had his hands in his hair as he screamed, his tail and ears twitching around wildly as his fingers switched between claws and hands, his eyes turning gold before going back to the dark green he had gotten used to. Cheshire. The growling came back as the two from before entered the room. Grab him. When a man tried to even get close, Izuku pounced and slashed his chest, making him go down. Aizawa watched as Izuku backed up more until he was as close to Aizawa as he could get. Let me use my quirk. No! Aizawa growled as the screaming and growls didn't stop. If I don't, this won't end. I want F run, just let me help him. She looked between them before hitting a button that unlocked his cuffs and the cage. Aizawa tried to get close as the screaming quieted down. It looked like since the bracelets were still trapping his quirk, it was stopping him from shifting to full form. Izuku, the panther, turned to him as he backed into the cage. Knowing she would somehow get them back in even if he tried to leave, he couldn't with how Izuku was acting. Come on, look at me. Kid. The panther stared into his eyes as he activated his quirk, forcing him to turn back to human. Izuku panted as his body shook, his ears and tail still twitching like something was buzzing under the skin. Aizawa laid a hand on his shoulder, grabbing his attention again as the woman activated the bracelets and door again. As soon as they all left, with the man from before being dragged by what looked like a medical team, Izuku collapsed and held onto Aizawa for dear life. I got you, kid. It's okay. He ran his hand through the other's hair, noticing the twitching still hadn't stopped. Izuku seemed to have trouble focusing on anything. After a moment, Aizawa thought back to what Izuku told them, to have a call in response to make sure they did what they needed to do, calm as a beach. It was silent for a moment before Izuku let out a small laugh. So are you. Aizawa let a small smile grace his features as he kept a hand petting the other. He knew it had to be getting late, at least for them, as Izuku's eyes kept trying to close. Go to bed, kid. Izuku curled up and around the other as Aizawa threw a protective arm over the other. We're getting out in the morning. Kigo was going through some simple moves when he felt a small pinch. He brushed it off for a moment until he felt ripping and more strange movements. Something's wrong. Kigo ignored Gunhead as he ran over to his phone. He dialed Tuya right away. Come on, pick up, pick up. It took another moment until the phone was answered. Are you okay? You're not hurt, right? The feather isn't damaged. Birdie, what are you dash? Tuya cut himself off. F. Call Izuku now. The other hung up as Kigo moved the phone and dialed the other. He paused as Gunhead finally came over. He knew he was right when the phone went to voicemail. Takami? Is everything all right? Kigo felt close to tears. Izuku was hurt, and they hadn't known. How long had he been gone? How long had he been in pain before he finally broke the feather? No. I gave these two guys I like these necklaces with my feathers on it, so I would always be there with them. One of them just ripped it apart, and he's not answering the phone. F. I should have checked in last night when I felt the weird shock. F. Gunhead laid a hand on his shoulders. Who was he interning with? Eraserhead, an underground hero who works with the police. Gunhead, please, we have to dash. Gunhead was already shouting out orders as he seemed to get ready. Kigo quickly changed into his hero costume before following him outside to one of the cars. Have your other friend go to the police station near there. We'll check at the agency. Kigo nodded as he called Tuya back. Tuya felt so stupid. He should have checked on Izuku when he didn't answer the chat and when Kigo talked about the weird feeling. It would be his fault if Izuku was hurt. They could have stopped it when it happened if they had checked. Tuya is everything dash. He didn't let Ryuko finish as he ran up to 13. We need to go somewhere. 13 looked to him a little confused before he continued. Kigo gave us these necklaces, and he can control them. Last night he felt something weird, but it wasn't me. Now he said one of them is broken, and Izuku isn't answering his phone. Who was he interning with? 13 asked as all three of them got ready to leave. An underground hero, Eraserhead. He works with the police and dash. He was cut off as his phone went off again. Please tell me he answered. Gunhead said for you to go to the police station. We're checking the agency. F Tuya, what if dash Tuya cut him off? He won't be K. We're gonna get him okay? He's not going anywhere without us. Right? I'll check in later. I love you, Tuya. You and Izuku. Tuya could feel the tears in his eyes as the other spoke. I love you both too. I wouldn't be here without you. They both hung up as Tuya took a breath and explained everything as they headed to the police station. As soon as they parked, Tuya jumped out of the car followed closely by Ryuko and 13. He ran through the door and ran to the secretary. Eraserhead and Cheshire were here yesterday. Where are they? The woman looked up and pointed to Tsukauchi, who looked frantic. Hey, Tsukauchi, where's Izuku and Eraser? The detective turned around shocked to see them. Todoroki dash. Tuya growled and grabbed onto his collar. Shut up. Where is he? Tsukauchi looked at him sadly. They were attacked while on patrol last night. We don't know where they are. Tuya froze as he felt anger and sadness rush through him. He tightened his grip on the collar and slammed Tsukauchi into the closest wall. Tuya. He ignored them as he growled, tears running down his face before turning to steam. You didn't tell us? How long has he been gone? How do you not know? Tsukauchi put his hands up. He knew why the other was so upset, and he wouldn't hold it against him. Tuya, put him down. Tuya froze at the voice and sent a glance to Kigo, who was holding onto his arm. Please, too. Tuya broke at that and dropped the detective. Kigo looked at Tsukauchi as he kept a hand on Tuya. Tell us what you know. Thank you for joining us on this journey through What If Deku Had Cat-Like Features. We hope you found it as captivating as we did. A big thank you to Jace is Dead for creating such an engaging story. Don't forget to visit their profile on archiveofourown.org for more fantastic works. The link is in the description below. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and subscribe to Zenin Fanfics for more intriguing explorations into fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we love hearing your thoughts and suggestions in the comment section. See you soon in the next video.